Hello, 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 everyone. I think I'm live right now. To open up the chat. I am running 2 or 3 minutes behind, but we're here. We're gonna get it done. Welcome, new members to our community. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. If you need help finding anything, please let me know. Hello, everyone. My name is Miss Penny. I run the chemistry channel and the spiritual roots hoodoo community. We have a very interesting topic that we're going to dive in today. And I'm so happy to talk about it because some of these conversations and some of the things that I have seen on social media and some of the conversations I've been having is people really don't a lot of people don't know what hoodoo really is. You just heard about it, you're getting little snippets here and there, you don't truly understand the practice yet. You see people telling you this and that, what's in hoodoo, a lot of hoodoo spells, uh, but you really don't know what it is. And a lot of people, what I'm finding in my own community, think that hoodoo is a religion or that it's Christian, that you have to be Christian to practice hoodoo. And those are just false claims. Hoodoo is not a religion. Did it hide up under religion? Yes, many of our spiritual practices hid under religion, Catholicism, and Christians, and many others. Okay, but it is not a religion. I'm gonna break this all the way down here to you today, and that's why I love hoodoo because even though it's open and it's full of liberation and freedom, but it's closed. Our ancestor was so smart. They didn't want us to get caught in the sauce with these religions because they had been beat up enough by religion. So they didn't make hoodoo a religion. It's an ancestral magic, and that's where all your freedom and liberation come from. And that's why I don't think the H. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, ATRs, and say you don't know. I'm gonna say you don't know. That's why you're accusing us because I had someone jump in. I was made a comment on something, and she was like, "Yeah, you hoodoo people be mixing stuff up." No, man, we do not mix things up. You don't understand what we're doing. Say that. You don't understand what we're doing. So you think we're mixing stuff up. No, we're not mixing stuff up. We know exactly what we're doing. Okay, you don't. You don't know what we're doing. You don't understand this practice. Just say that. But we don't mix stuff up over here. We follow our ancestors. And we know how to approach our work. Hello, golden sun kiss. Hello, the stylish saver. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're gonna jump in here today. We're gonna fully go over here. So get your popcorn, get relaxed, because this might be a little a little long. Because I don't I'm tired of, I want to represent it right, okay? And I want to tell you, give you full disclosure of the practice, what it is, where it come from. And why is it called hoodoo? Because I never heard any to tell the truth about it. And I was another writer talking about that. I was just reading a book with was that it was another resource we was reading, and they were talking about how their ancestors never call it hoodoo. I've never heard this term hoodoo, even though I've seen root workers and hoodoo practitioners in my community. No one spoke that word. That's something somebody's giving to us, first of all. But since they gave it to us, we'll take it. That's how our ancestors would, because these people, pale face people, will call you what they want to call you. They're gonna label it the way they want to, because they don't understand what we're doing. Okay, we're gonna cover all of that today. So make sure that you get settled in and that you can be here for a while. This is going to be recorded as well, but do know that this is live stream. It may take a minute. Okay, so get relaxed, get comfortable. If you have any questions that you want to ask, please do so and hold them at the end of this video. If you got anything to add while I'm going over here, please do. Okay. Hoodoo is a practice that addresses issues and concerns we all can relate to, such as resolving mental and spiritual, physical health conditions, maintaining good spirits and relationships in the home, at work, and in school, attracting luck and protective energies, and setting things right when necessary. Finally, it addresses a significant subject that is as important and elusive today as it is in the distant past. Social justice. We wouldn't have civil rights without hoodoo. Putting it frankly, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have civil rights without hoodoo. You best believe that. You wouldn't have the freedom and liberation as a person looking like me. You wouldn't have that if it wasn't for hoodoo. Believe me, hoodoo was front and center during the civil rights because the entire black church was hoodoo. It's time for you Christians to accept that because your church's functions a little bit different than every other church in that nation. It's time for you to look at that. You done forgot that you put ancestors in a lot of those customs in the church, and now you think it's Christian and it's not. Okay? Hoodoo is an age-old assemblage of practices that have crossed continents and passed down from one generation to the next. And it's feminine. Usually the mothers carry that. It's a matrilineal practice, an ancestral practice that come from women. Let me put it like that. That's a fact, Jack. Okay. Hoodoo incorporates elements of various religions, including Catholicism. It is not a religion. Hoodoo is not a religion. You subject to come up there in our practice, and you might see a little voodoo up in there. But we still practicing hoodoo. We do what our ancestors tell us to do. After all, it is their DNA that runs through us. Because it trips me out with the voodoo of some of these religions when they see hoodoo and they're saying, hey, we got to be initiated. No, we don't. You got a religion, so yes, you have to be initiated, not us. These are the same ancestors. And in the same breath, you'll tell me, I'm not talking to Oshun. I'm not talking to Aloha. You in the same breath. What makes a difference? We do agree this stuff happened to us. So why would they talk to you and not to me? Why? And the same thing happened to our ancestors. Again, that's when the religion starts to talking. I'm not saying your initiation is not valid, but I don't need to tell you, some of the ATRs, I don't need you coming over here telling me that my practice is not valid, dismissing my experiences. And you know what happened to us. So why wouldn't the ancestors lead me to do that type of work? Okay, keep that in mind. Now, is you're not making. And when I hear you guys saying that, you kind of sound like the Christians. You start acting like Christians. Is you kind of lose your stuff when you see us. Our ancestors lead us to do, follow a certain kind of practice. And sometimes your ancestors will lead you not even to ATR now at all. They'll lead you to Hinduism. You got a lot of people that practice Hinduism. They might lead you to be a Buddhist. Okay, if it has some type of medicine or self-development and growth in there, your ancestors, that will lead you to do it. The only thing that's gonna happen with hoodoo is gonna make your religion better. It's gonna make it work better because you done took your ancestors up in there with you. That's all that's gonna do. You can be any religion and practice hoodoo. You got that by bliss bloodline magic. You get that by birthright. Okay? I have to make that absolutely clear because y'all, a lot of people don't know what this is. You think that, and it's not just magic. Okay. In fact, part of the reason for this welcoming nature is the fact that it can accommodate and speak to people from a wide variety of belief systems, enrich existing practices in the process. So our ancestors, no matter what we believed in, they gave us hoodoo. If we didn't believe in Christianity, guess what? You still got hoodoo. They didn't care. See how beautiful that gift is? We even got black people that are Muslims that practice hoodoo. So you don't know that because these people don't come out a lot because you have a lot of charlatans out here talking about hoodoo is Christian. And it's not. Do we use those elements? Can we use their religion to practice it? Yep, we can. And in fact, we can use any religion and practice hoodoo. And see, that's what make a lot of the other religions upset because they think we're mixing stuff. No, we're not mixing stuff. We're not. Okay, we had this discussion a little while ago. We're not mixing stuff. Why wouldn't those other ATRs because we're carrying that ancestral blood. Why wouldn't our ancestors teach us about who they are? Because when you start finding out who you are, you start finding about your people, you're going to run into your people. That's what's going to happen here. I say Shay Hoodoo with metaphysics. It is a spiritual science. It definitely is a spiritual science, a one in all spiritual science. That's what it is. It's totally ancestral. It's a way of life as well. Okay. The primary concern of Hoodoo is not only spirits but also self determination, which made it attractive and enduring fixture of black culture in the antebellum. We're going to get this work done no matter what. We're going to make some shake and move no matter what. Our ancestors, and it's a beautiful thing when you start to really understand what Hoodoo really is. And I'm coming here to dismantle the misconceptions and what you think about Hoodoo. This is, yeah, and ancestors supposed to be front and center no matter what in any religion. In any of our ATRs, our ancestors are front and center. I had to tell somebody that because I'm telling you, I don't know who that, I don't know what's going out there with these IFA initiations. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna just speak from that because I think this person was in IFA, and they told me I can't talk to my ancestors. I said, "Have you lost your mind? Have you completely? Did you sound ridiculous because you wouldn't have an ATR without the ancestor? The ancestors don't nothing come before the ancestors and God, but y'all done made this all about the Orishas over there. But really, you're not supposed to be initiating them if you haven't properly aligned them with their ancestors. And I don't know how valid that the initiation is because many of them, you have to recognize your own ancestry when you go over there. And the most important ancestors to line you up with is land ancestors. So how valid is these initiations because you're not lining them up with their ancestors. You trying to get them to work with these spirits that are ancestral. The Orisha, the Loa, they are ancestral. So the first line of spirits that have a say in their initiation is the ancestors. You're supposed to be going to the ancestors first before you even put them in there and see if that's what their ancestors want. That's why I tell you, let your ancestors lead you over there. Now this was back in the I don't know what happened within the last I want to say within the last maybe 10 years, we ain't some false stuff being produced out here. Because this was thoroughly understood 10 years ago. We understood that we could not jump over there in them ATRs and not be right with our ancestors. In fact, you had some EFA practitioners telling you, hey, get right with your ancestors first, get that going before you get over here. You had some of them saying that. Okay. I don't know what is going on now, but this guy told me I can't talk to my ancestors. I said, you sound ridiculous, sir. You wouldn't have an ATR without it. Y'all supposed to have the ancestors front and center there. It sounds ridiculous for you to even make that statement, but I don't, it kind of don't surprise me because I've had too many people come to me and I've had to fix that for them because somebody told them that they didn't need to talk to their ancestors. They'll do it for them, and their practice was all jacked up, and they was initiated into IFA, but yet they were coming at me trying to find out. I said that's the problem right there. And then they go to tell me, well, he said this. I said, they're not, I don't know what's going on, but that's a red flag if somebody is telling you that. Because that's all ancestral. You're going against IFA itself or any ATR itself, telling people this stuff. Telling them disconnecting with their ancestors. And Black Americans, I have to tell you to be careful with this. Because it's a lot of us getting bamboozled. They not giving us the full Ifa and voodoo is beautiful in its natural organic state. It is beautiful. It is people that have come in here with their ill intentions that will stagnate your practice. That's why I say let your ancestors do it. Let them lead you on that. And people they mean well, but they are flawed. I would say this again. They would keep you stagnated. I just saw this Ifa priest talking about she had trained somebody and gave them a hand, and here he is teaching somebody else, trying to initiate other people, not even fully giving them all the rituals and ceremonies they need to be practicing it. This is what's going on out there. I've had people come to me thinking they initiating something, and I go to asking them questions. The only thing they can tell me is somebody gave them some spells and some elekes and told them that they was initiated. This is what's going on over there. Okay, this is why it's important. And Black Americans, this is your magic. You need to have your ancestors before you even go over there. And you need to be lined up with the ancestors on that land. Because a lot of us are American Indian. We got to take our own ancestry up in there. We've done it. It is adaptable. It is, we've already did that because all our spiritual sciences are adaptable. They're ancestral. You can see that because we were able to preserve it on top of any religion. So it can be done. If they're telling you that can't be done, no, yes, it can be done. You did it to keep it alive, to you keep all these spiritual practices alive. Hello, Diamond. Hey, Kent, Katu. You can do it now. So don't tell me that stuff, and don't tell me I can't talk to my ancestors. You sound ridiculous. Okay, so keep that in front of you if you're thinking, and I'm not trying to bash them, but we got too many people in some of these positions that don't mean well. Okay, and I don't like it's like that. I don't like it's like that, and we just got to be more mindful. I don't care, and these people just getting over here for a title. A lot of them getting over there just for a title. They think they're gonna know the magic and be able to gain a lot of following and keep manipulating people. They're using it to using a religion to manipulate. Okay, we seen that in Christianity, and they go to sounding like Christians when they don't want you to do nothing for yourself, and they want you to keep paying them and all that stuff. You're getting like the religion. You're getting like the colonizer religion. And now that I look at hoodoo, I don't think our ancestors. That's why they got it like that. So couldn't nobody come over here and be doing in a religion and just mess it up like that. Okay. Hoodoo has been practiced for hundreds of years. The practices vary by region and in some cases by cities and towns within states. Through hoodoo, however, we are connected to the strength, adaptability, and do-it-yourself wisdom of early African Americans. Hoodoo is a reservoir of knowledge. That's why you will see in our community. I have to expose you to everything for you to learn hoodoo. It's so almost like, and you can see that too in Jamaica with OBI. OBI is almost like that. That's why I'm like, when you look at OBI and you fully understand hoodoo, you be like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Why are these so similar? You start looking at a lot of spiritual systems like that. When you start looking at voodoo and Hindu look like voodoo. Some of the protocols, the way they approach things is just like voodoo, but you won't know that because a lot of people out here are making uh hoodoo look Christian and like you can only use the Bible, and that's not true. That's the tradition that their ancestors passed on to them, how they use it. Some people can use it like that. That's absolutely fine, but it's not a mandatory that other people approach their magic, their ancestral magic like that. Now, maybe your ancestors told you, and that's in your bloodline, and that's the way they want you to practice the magic. That's the way they introduce you, and they want you to keep accessing that way. There's some ancestors like that, but it is not a religion, and you do not have to be in a specific religion or use a specific religion to access the ancestral magic. Hey, Gerald Call. I hope we're clear on that. I want to be clear on that. Okay, I want to be very clear so you understand what it is. And we already did a video. I did a live stream on ancestral magic, and I broke it down there. But here we go. We're breaking it down again because obviously people are confused. And the ancestors are front and center in this practice. You cannot access this sort of magic. It's ancestral magic. So why wouldn't you think you need a relationship with the ancestors? Okay. The healthier your relationship is with your ancestor and consistent it is, the better your stuff gonna work. I hope we're clear on this. Simply put, Hoodoo is a cultural repository of Black American traditional folk magic and medicine practices. It's an all-in-one. Like I said, Hoodoo will heal you, fix your whole life if you let it. It's an all-in-one. It's got root work in there, holistic medicine up in there. It's got spiritual, spiritual treatment in there where it can fix your mind, get your mind in alignment, get your body back in alignment, get your spirit back in alignment. Yes, it's all that. Okay. Born as an adaptation of various traditional indigenous religions. They like to say African religions, but let's just get real. These are indigenous spiritual practices. Okay. African religions is the slave plantation and gradually transformed during the Reconstruction and the 21st century as African Americans' needs and beliefs evolve. It will evolve. And that's what it's doing now, depending on the generation and who's trying to integrate it into their life and make it adapted and make it a way of life. It's going to evolve. All our spiritual practices are supposed to do that. But when you start putting religions on stuff, religion means to bind, to keep back. That's what that means. And when I start hearing some of these other ATRs, you ain't supposed to be doing that to us. You're not. We're our stuff is so different from what the colonizers' beliefs and how they do things. We don't even move like them. We don't judge other religions. We don't do that. You don't see Buddhists coming to say that you're gonna go to hell. Got to get on these Christians now. You don't see Hindu people coming to tell us that we going to hell. Christians, you the only one to do that because this is a trauma response that was done to your ancestors, and you're repeating trauma. You're still living under that intergenerational trauma by trying to judge and damn somebody else because they don't believe like you. This is the same thing the Christians did and unalive people all over the globe because of this behavior, and you are taking on that same spirit. You're sick. Stop it. Focus. Ask yourself why you got to keep doing it. Why your God got to have you policing other people's beliefs. He can't be no strong God and know all and do everything if you out here doing it. He can't be. You think. I know what the ancestors do. I ain't got to convince nobody nothing. All I got to do is tell them to try. And when they try, they see results. That's it. Then you is going to beat people in the head. Okay? You want to beat people in the head and stuff. It don't make no sense. And ATR people, don't get mad at us. And I think you don't. I'm gonna say that you don't understand. I'm just gonna say tell ATRs they really don't understand Hoodoo. They just think it's a religion, and it's not. It's not. Let me be absolutely clear. You're mistaken about what. It's not a religion. We never meant for it to be religion. Our ancestors wanted us to have freedom and liberation. We had already been bound by religion. Okay. You tried to preserve some of your ancestral practices by hiding under religion, and then you kept it a religion. Hoodoo never made that shift, and I'm happy that it did. I see why I didn't. Okay. Yet we can study all of the ATRs, and we can follow our ancestors and follow the look at all the ATRs, because when you look at Hoodoo, it consists of all of that. That's why I have to show you some of the things in the ATR so you can understand the spirits and the energies in Hoodoo. Why our ancestors got things set up the way it does. I still read the Bible as a historical reference. Yeah, you can still read it. Yeah, I recommend you do it. Read your Bible, you understand it for yourself. That's what you're supposed to be doing, and that's how our ancestors do it. That's why it became a conjure book and a spell book. They wasn't listening to them religions. They was looking at them people in there doing magic, doing conjure. That's how our ancestors. If you're gonna look at it, I think that's the best way to look at it, because them folks in there doing magic, calling it miracles and something else. Okay? But them people's doing conjure and magic in there. The same we is doing in that Bible, nothing different. Now they can call it miracles and make it Christians. What somebody say, I just laugh at them. Talking about let the dead bury the dead. I just started laughing. I said that's ironic. Since your Bible's full of dead people, it's full of dead people, and you calling on the dead man. But when we do it, we wrong. Make it make sense. See, y'all, you don't think about what you're saying. You hold on to Peter, Paul, and Timothy words. You hold on to their words, and them people dead. You praising the dead. You calling on Jesus, and he dead. But when I do it, it's wrong. Get somewhere and sit down and be quiet, Christian people, because you don't sound right. That's what I said. You need to update your belief system and stop listening to people and read that Bible for yourself. You caught up in a religion, and you don't have any spiritual essence. You're not retaining anything over there. Nothing but a whole bunch of judgment and persecution and going to hell. That's all y'all holding on to over there. You don't know anything about angels. You don't have any real spiritual wisdom. If you still, you still moving like that. Okay? You read your Bible. I want you to read it for yourselves. Just had somebody, uh, crystals is evil. Crystals is evil. I said, now, the, God just told Aaron to make breastplates full of crystals in there. Crystals and stones is all through the Bible. But now when somebody else said it's evil, and you said that you don't read this Bible for yourself, you listen to these preachers. And I don't think these preachers reading their Bible, because if they were saying, if they heard what you're not seeing what's in their Bible. Obviously, God think crystals and stuff is important. He's telling Aaron to make a breastplate and put all these crystals in there. Obviously, he think it's important. It's not evil. I Ancestors, please fix it. Please fix it. Now they talk about demons all the time in the church. Everything a demon, everything a devil. Anything that they because again, this is the same thing they did for witch hunts. This is the same thing I did to our ancestors. They turn into the colonizer when they doing stuff like this. I don't know if you was a trauma bond, and I don't know what that's going on with you, but it's ugly. It don't look good. And what you don't know, your black church was always hoodoo. It was never Christian. The black church itself was hoodoo. You can't. Matter of fact, if you look at our culture, I have to tell people that you can't get away from hoodoo, because you is hoodoo. If you black American, everything about you is hoodoo. Your belief system, the way you do things, that our ancestors had a way. They put that in the culture. They put it in our music, even in our customs and some of the customs we have. You can't get away from it. Okay, our mama taught us it was just passed down. You can't get away from it. When you fully understand that and start really looking at things and have a relationship with your ancestors, you're gonna see how the ancestors been there the whole time. Hoodoo been there the whole time, especially if you black American. You are hoodoo. Okay, you got the most powerful magic. Why you think people over here trying to act like you? Why you think people trying to dance like you, copy your music and all that stuff? Okay, why you think they trying to do that? They trying to conjure up your spirit in them, because you conjuring up your ancestors in you. Now you got other people trying to. It's crazy, because it's almost like that movie Single White Female, when the girl start dressing like a friend, acting like a friend, and all that stuff. It's mind boggling, because you're saying you don't like us, but you're trying to be like us. So I don't understand that. And I don't think I could take it up to is you jealous. Okay, you mad because you can't be us. Okay, you say you don't like us, but boy, do we ain't we lit over here. And the truth about it, and I just have to be, upfront. In my experience, and from my experience in our community, black people, we don't think about other people. Call us conceited. The only thing we think about is ourselves. So when we look at y'all and we all on your mind like that, we look at y'all like, what's wrong with y'all? Because we ain't thinking about you. We got our own culture. We over here trying to stay lit. That's all we trying to do. We trying to make it great again. That's all we trying to do. We focus on ourselves. We don't spend our time thinking about other cultures. We focus on ourselves. You can call us conceited or self-absorbed, whatever. But it's a shock when we look around and people trying to be like us, talk like us, and act like this because we not studying you. Our mind ain't even, you ain't even on our radar. Okay, and it's kind of, you know, weird when we see you acting and dancing and singing like us, but you say you don't like us. It's weird. Okay, it's lame too, cause we looking at you like, and then we tell you what you doing. Well, that's not what we doing. We ain't copying you. What you doing then? Now you gonna gaslight me and tell me I don't know what I'm looking at? That's what happens. Okay, they don't do it, and that's just like Hoodoo. It's not a book that I can't pick up. It's not a North American book. I got them coming in my box again after I've been very, and I know what I'm talking about, you guys. Okay, I've had these pale face people getting in my box telling me, Miss Penny, I've been watching your videos. I sent you here. I sent you there. They know what I'm talking about. Can you please? I'm not the Black ancestry, but can you please teach me? Absolutely not. I can't do it. I can't teach you. You're not. It's this is bloodline magic. It's not because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's because they know I know what I'm talking about. Okay, they know what I'm talking about. They will hit me up in the box in a minute. I got to be absolutely clear saying close, close, close. Now if you want you want me to point you in the right direction and book a reading and I can point you in the right direction to build your practice, I don't mind doing that. I'll help you connect with a folk tradition that's in alignment with your ancestry. I don't mind doing that because you have to do your own healing work. Your ancestors was crazy people. You can't bypass that and get over here and do that. You're gonna have to call on your most elevated ancestors and start healing those patterns within you because they ain't left you. You keep trying to avoid it with the new age, galactic, space, and aliens. No, sit in that and look at that shadow work that you need to be doing. Because your ancestors did some raggedy stuff and they still doing it. See how you can fix it. Stop jumping over here with us because we got our own work to do. And I don't care about that kumbaya, all this love and all that. Well, tell them people that, okay? Fix what you got. If you really want to go on like that, start changing it. And once you change that within yourself, we're gonna be able to see it change on the outside. But don't jump over here and do a spiritual bypass and think you can rock over here like that. No, deal with your ancestry. Deal with those ancestors. Start healing those patterns within yourself because y'all still got that stuff in y'all bloodline, like them spirits in y'all bloodline like that. Them hurtful spirits is still in there because your ancestors, that's the kind of stuff they practice and made it to the point where they all made it a religion because now you're burning folks on crosses and stuff and wearing white clothes and stuff like that. You done ritualized it. Y'all got some heavy work to do. So you shouldn't want to be jumping over here in any ATR and ancestral, spiritual practice before you did that. And I don't appreciate the ATRs initiating them in that without knowing this truth. Don't even until you line them up right. Don't do it until they do their work. They got to look, and that matters because the head in the front of all our spiritual practices is ancestral veneration. It don't no ATR move and shake without without the ancestors and God. And the only thing come before the ancestors is the great spirit. That's it. I don't know what you're doing over there. That's why I look at you crazy when you let them come over there. What are you doing? If they ain't careful and come over there, they ain't gonna do nothing but corrupt that. They got sickness in their bloodline, just like we got sickness in our bloodline from all this intergenerational trauma. This stuff made us crazy. Okay, because we dealing with mentally sick people, and their ancestors are mentally sick. They're not well, they spirit, and if you mentally sick, you got a spiritual deficiency. Something's not well about you. I don't care how much they say, I just want love, I just want love. Where was that at? Where is that at when it come to dealing with people of color in your political, in your society? Where is it at? That needs to reflect how you feel on the inside. Need to reflect all around us. So go do that work on your folks and stop jumping over here. That's some type of guilt that you need to deal with. Instead of jumping over here trying to feed the guilt, you need to jump over there and do the hard work and try to fix your people. Don't come over here. I know it looks beautiful, it looks attractive, and it's resilient and all that stuff, but this was made to deal with your ancestors. It wasn't created out of nothing pretty. This is made to deal with your ancestors and the environment uh y'all they forced us in. So no, don't jump over here. Care how pretty you think it is, how cute you think it is. Everything we do, y'all want to copy. It just, who ancestors help me. It's just beautiful. It just after you didn't try to destroy us. It wasn't me. It was my ancestors, and you still doing the same raggedy stuff they doing, unconsciously doing it. This is the same thing they do. You still doing it. You gonna stop for a minute and say, I need to be fixing my stuff, and I don't need to be going in there invading them people's stuff and be entitled to their stuff like that. Because you come over here, you do the regular stuff. Still in my box with this stuff. No. The only way you gonna get this knowledge is if a black family adopts you and take care of you, and then this knowledge will be passed on. If you raised in a black family, or something like that, you Creole, something like that. That's the only way you gonna be jumping over here like that. Ancestry bloodline is important over here. I don't care what you now. You don't function like your Christianity. You can't come over here with that kind of mindset that this work like Christianity. This don't work like that. We don't. I am healing and ask the ancestors to give me strength to face the challenges ahead. But look at yourself. Do that work. Get your people together over there. Okay, I know that's some heavy work, because it's some heavy work what I do with my people, because they stuck on religion. I know it's hard, because they be mentally sick on there. They already did studies and found out that people that's got racism, suffer and prejudice, real racist like that, they got mental problems. Their mind is looks like somebody a mind of an addict. Okay, their mind is all messed up. Our ancestors knew that. We wrote books about that, because the behavior was appalling. If you get to the point where you want to eat people and stuff like that, yeah, you want to do Jeffrey Dahmer stuff on people, because that's what was happening there. They was doing Jeffrey Dahmer stuff to us. Something wrong, something the matter with you, and you probably still had those thoughts. That stuff is still in you. Those spirits still in you. You know it's still in us, because we still under that same trauma. I have to be absolutely clear. Yes, Miss Penny had this conversation before. I have to have it again. Now I want you to fully understand what hoodoo really is. And it is closed. I will say it again, it is closed. Okay? Think about, and pale face people, think about that. What happened to us? You seeing the pretty little spells and all that stuff. You need to be thinking about people swinging from trees and being ate. Babies being put out there for alligator bait. That's what you need to think about before you come over here, okay? That's what you need to think about before you come over here. Think about that. Black babies used for bait, people being eaten, women being assaulted, women and men being assaulted, mentally, physically, sexually. All that was going on before you jump over here, and still going on to this day. No, you shouldn't feel comfortable at all about jumping over here and doing what we got going on. They should think you real hard, and we absolutely got ancestral spirits over here that do not like pale face people. They don't want to work with you at all. Just like you got some ancestors that died not liking black people. You got ancestors you can't even call on because they too raggedy. Yeah, you do. You got ancestors call on you can't even raggedy. And I'm not gonna say that I don't have the same type of ancestors. I got some ancestors over here that's too raggedy because they died with heavy intergenerational trauma with addiction and crazy in their mind from living in a crazy environment. I'm gonna break it down to you so you can't get it twisted. I'm making it simple for you because you don't think about that. You don't think about that. Okay? I want you to think about it. And when we get over here in Hoodoo, we have work to do. This is the intergenerational work that we have to do. This is the level up that we have to do to access our magic. That's why we're doing the shadow work. That's why we're doing the healing work. And people forget this and they think Hoodoo is just about magic. It's about a relationship with your ancestors and these spirits. Ain't nothing shaking and moving if you ain't got that going. Whether you are dealing with plant spirits, air spirit, whatever, you're gonna have a relationship and spend time. To understand any cultural phenomenon, religious practice, or traditional folkloric practice, you must first know its origin and history. But this couldn't be truer for Hoodoo. To know the history of Hoodoo is to understand its practice. As I mentioned in the introduction, trying to define Hoodoo is a rather complicated task on its own. Unlike its close cousin Voodoo, because if you get into you see that happen in Louisiana. I did a presentation on this in our community. You're gonna run into voodoo because voodoo is ancestral. It is an ancestral, a sort of spiritual tradition, and a lot of them made it a religion. But if you were in voodoo, because we had our own, each indigenous practice got their own form of voodoo because it's an ancestral tradition that you honor your ancestors. And some of them become loas, they become saints. If they were good ancestors and they did some great stuff in the community, that's an ancestor. I'm not talking about your family member that passed away with addiction and all that sort of stuff. No, I'm talking about vibrant, elevated ancestors that made an impact in the culture and the community. That's an ancestor. That's who we're calling on. Okay? Hoodoo involves not just feeling spirits, but having a relationship with them, praying to them, giving them praise, holding them in high regard. We must invite the influence of and ask the favors from the spirits of our ancestors, the earth, and the elements. This is why we try to incorporate many elements in our prayers as possible. Okay? Like I told you, everything that we work with over here in Hoodoo is a spirit. Everything you pick up on your altar, you're moving whatever that candle, everything is a spirit. The roots, everything has spirit in it. The practice of hoodoo became known by many different names. Root work, conjuration, also referred to numerous practices of healing associated with African Americans. Conjure is actually an old English word used to describe calling on spirits. Conjure itself means conjuring. So I don't know how you think you gonna come over here and hoodoo and you ain't gonna be working with no spirit. You just doing magic. Magic itself is spiritual. Because I got people coming over here too. I just want to do spells. They don't know nothing about hoodoo. The way the introduction they're getting that is just spells. No, ma'am, that's not what it is. I'm so sorry. No, sir, no, ma'am. I'm sorry they told you that, but that's not what that is. We do some work over here. That ain't gonna even work if you're not doing the work. No, that spell ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna have to get somewhere over here and sit down and be quiet and start looking at yourself. That's gonna be required. It's mandatory for you to move around with this. Okay? And some people they don't put that together. Depending on the region of the country, terms such as cunning, some people call cunning men and women too. cunning, and tricking have also been used to describe these practices. So you'll see them being called by different names. But when I was growing up, I, you know, my mama didn't call them that. I've been to a root worker's house before, many times. Okay, I've been to people house that do spiritual work. They've even been my mother's friends, but my mama never let that stuff. She never let those words come out her mouth. I never heard anyone. I just know they always said they know that stuff. They know stuff. Okay, never heard these terms. Hoodoo used like that. Okay. There appears to be some dispute over the origins of the term of hoodoo, as some suggest that it was a term used by whites to describe voodoo practices of the slaves, because they know indigenous people. They know what voodoo is. They know voodoo is an ancestral traditional practice. You'll see that in Africa, it's just not one form of voodoo. Usually, every country got their own, again, because it's ancestral. They honor their own ancestral spirits in their nation. That's what voodoo really is. It's about the nation. You're honoring the nation. You need to understand that. And when they came to, I don't understand that. The ATRs need to understand that too. When the Africans did come here and our ancestors were here, there were American Indians in America, and then they came. The Africans came in. We When we came together, it made us a greater nation. So now we got more nations flowing through our blood. And the colonizer thought that was going to mess us up. No, it just made us greater, because now we got more. We got extra gods flowing through our veins because of this integration that didn't just happen. And now we're gonna call on each other gods, and we're gonna put this together. That's what happened there, because our practice was adaptable. And you thought you was messing something up. No, you wasn't. You was making it bigger. You ain't messing nothing up, because we came together and put that right on together. Okay, that's why we have the African the Congo cosmograph in Hoodoo. We even have our own cosmology, indigenous cosmology. And if you look at the cosmology of the American Indian and the cosmology of the Africans, it's almost identical. Yeah, Japan and China. Yeah, okay. We the only one. Black Americans is the only one who's been disconnected with their ancestors. And I'm seeing too the ATRs. I don't know what the thing is behind it. This just happened because I don't want to bash the religions. The religions are beautiful when you understand them. They're just not being represented like that now. But when I was in it, when I was first introduced to it, I had a lot of babalowos. Uh, they love because I've been talking about the ancestors a while. Okay, you guys, ancestors have been front and center in my practice the whole time. I didn't start picking up magic or anything like that. I was just, I've taken my time to develop a relationship with my ancestors and talk about them. And so when I would share that on my platform, I would have Babalowos. Uh, they'll hit me up and say, the ancestors told me to pray for you. I'm gonna be sending you prayers. I was like, why they tell you to pray for me? He said, I don't know, but they want me to pray for you. And when one stopped praying for me, another one to get in my box and said, the ancestors told me to pray for you. Praise be the ancestors. May they live on forever and ever and ever. We love the work that you do. That's they was getting in my box, and the prayers that they were sending me. I have no words. There were mighty, mighty prayers that these Babalords were sending me. Because when I read them, I can hear his voice in my head. Okay, that's just how powerful those prayers was. I don't know what they're doing now. They didn't ask me to get initiated. They wasn't asking me none of that. They just told me to keep talking about the ancestors, and the ancestors told me to pray. Told them to pray for me. To keep talking about the ancestors. Okay. I just had somebody on Instagram that jumped in my box. It trips me out when it happened. I had somebody to jump in my box on Instagram, and I was talking about spiritual communication. And oh my gosh, that was a crazy experience. I think I shared it here on. I think I shared it here to my YouTube family. But he jumped in my box and he said, "Oh my gosh, the spirits got so happy over here when you were talking about spiritual communication. You explained it all too well." And he said, "Papa Legba wants me to tell you a story." It tripped me out. I was like, "Oh my God, what is happening here?" And I haven't worked with Papa Legba in about a year. And the story that he told me was actually like a message from Papa Legba. See how weird that happens? Okay. I didn't go fishing for Papa Legba. Okay. I had no idea, but these are kind of things that kind of happen when you start talking about the ancestors. Like I tell you, the ancestors can reach you through anybody, anywhere, at any time. Do not put limits on them. That tripped me out when that boy got in my box like that and said that. But usually, the people that know, they know what I'm talking about. They gonna reach out to me. Okay. Hey, Angelos Carter. They're gonna reach out. They know, they know when I'm talking, they know what they're hearing. Okay. Some observers draw a connection between the word and the word voodoo and juju and the term used to describe a magical belief system practiced in Nigeria. The Hausa word hudaba was a word used to refer to a produce retribution. This term was later picked up and used to describe malevolent forces by the American Aborigines or American Indians, because that's where we are. Early white observers called the of practice hoodoo of the Negro occultism. So they let you know that it was our own occultism, our own spiritual science. We already had that in America. I know they got you thinking that our spiritual practices come from somewhere else, but there's a form of voodoo. We already have our own form of voodoo, and then when you look at hoodoo close enough, again, we are honoring these ancestors in the ancestral magic. It looks a little. It's not, although it's not a religion, it's moving kind of like voodoo, just a little bit. That we can make it official. In order to understand the spirits in hoodoo, you have to look at voodoo to understand the crossroads spirits. You have to look at it. You have to study it because those are the same spirits that got transferred over here. It didn't change because we went somewhere else. These same spirits, they're just associated differently now, but it's the same thing. And I can tell you that the ancestors is not going to have you working with a different. They might lead you to a different religions depending on your spiritual development. They might have you learning more about Hinduism. They might have you learning more about Christianity if they feel like it'll grow you. They might have you learning more about Ifa if they think it'll help you. They might have you learning more about Mayat if they think it's going to help you. Okay? You still practicing hoodoo. Okay? You're just using a religion for your self development and growth. And when you take your ancestors up in there, it's going to make that religion magical. Okay? Have I lost anyone? Okay? I hope you're still with me. Okay, voodoo today is practiced all over West and Central Africa. It originated in East Africa, namely Egypt, Nubia, Ethiopia, Northern India, ancient Ionia that is now Greece, and ancient Mesopotamia. Okay, wherever African matriarchal traditions were dominant force throughout the entire world, that's where you're going to see voodoo. You see that with Mami Wata. Like I said, that's an ancestral spiritual practice. It's going to lead back to women. All these spiritual practices are going to be leading back to women. I know what they're showing you, and I know what you're seeing in these religions. But if you sit in these religions long enough, you're going to find out this leads back to a woman. Okay? This is matrilineal. Hoodoo is matrilineal as well. Okay? As patriarchy, male dominance became prominent, these matriarchal groups were subjugated and constantly invaded. Okay? They were forced to migrate in other places, and fragments of their ancient religions, such as voodoo, remain today. Because it was an ancestral spiritual practice. You look up voodoo itself, people fail to do research and look for themselves. It's going to say ancestral. If you go look up Ifa and ask what's the source of Ifa, first thing is going to say ancestral. None of these practice works without the ancestors. Hoodoo is the same way. No different. It's just not a religion. It's a magic. I hope the Black Madonna is a great example. Because when you start looking at those saints, I'm going to go into that in a minute. They start looking like ancestors. Yeah. Okay. It's always been there. Hoodoo has always been there. The ancestral magic has always been there. On many plantations in the South, slaves recognized that there were those among them who were recognized as certain spiritual with certain spiritual abilities. This is very interesting because I think we talked about this. Practitioners came to use the term over hoodoo because of the public's negative perception of the traditions. That's why I think that's why it wasn't called that. And two, some of our ancestors are practicing hoodoo, and that's not what they call it. And so when you accuse them of doing it, they're gonna get messed up, get mad at you because that's not what they're doing. They're practicing Christianity. They really believe that it's Christian. Some of them don't know the difference because they was trying to dodge this word what other folks was calling them. Okay, many of the practices of hoodoo were practiced privately by some of our ancestors who identified themselves publicly as traditional Protestant Christians. So they're saying it was very prominent in the Protestant church, but you can see it in the Catholic church too, and the Pentecostal church, heavily up in some of those churches. These practices were not formally organized. Hoodoo served more as an umbrella term describing the many various practices of the tradition. See how big it is? Okay, there are no concrete dogmas or ideology to which the practitioners subscribe. The practices of indigenous or American Indians and even Europeans became part of the stew known as hoodoo. Okay, and we went on and took a little bit of Christianity up in there. That's where you get some of the European Western elements at, because we had to use what we had. Okay, hoodoo was as means by which slaves and their descendants sought to manipulate invisible forces so as to influence the human condition for the purpose of empowerment and protection, as well as to commit acts of aggressions and self-defense. Had to have it. Okay, had to have some spiritual, because who else is gonna get after these people when they do regular stuff? Can't do nobody do it but a spirit. So you had to get the spirits on these people to get them in line. And then we did that, we was evil. But this is what you said your God do. You said your God get people in line when they doing raggedy stuff. So we using the God, that God you said that get people when they do raggedy stuff. That's the God we calling on to do something with you. We understand it. We get what you're saying. You don't like it. Okay? But this is what you said your God do. So we showing you what they do. We're gonna make it happen, Captain. Okay? And now you don't like it. I'm sorry that you don't like it. This is how you told us to use this Bible. That's how you told us to read it, and we're doing it. We're using it better than you. Okay. Those who specialize in powers of hoodoo went by many different names: conjure doctors, secret doctors, goofer doctors, root doctors, treaters, conjurers. Names tended to differ depending on where they were located geographically. Okay, and I've talked about that before. Throughout the Carolinas, some of the healers were known as goofer doctors, while in Virginia, the phrase trick doctors was commonly used for rituals and specialists. The healer or conjurer would be male or female. The root worker was said to be supernaturally called to serve as such. African Americans who had physical deformities. I want to stop there. You will see now if you go back and look at the most iconic hoodoo practitioners, they have a distinct sort of look. Some of them are not attractive in the sense that you wouldn't they're just not attractive, or something unique about their appearance. Because I remember as growing up, when we were growing up, I talked about this before. You were not to make fun of people that didn't look like you. If they had a deformity or whatever, you wanted to make fun. You would get in trouble for that. You want to get you want to get a whooping. Keep on making fun of people. You got hit in your mouth. You got toe up. I didn't understand this at first, but many of the people that had deformities were the one who had the special gifts. Okay. African Americans who had physical deformities were believed to have supernatural and gifted with powers. Some root workers were noted as having characteristics like red eyes, strange birthmarks, and even speech impediments. Yeah, yeah. So so you see, you back then when you seen some of them practitioners, they wasn't very attractive. You wouldn't give them a second look. Okay. Even some of the angels, if you see some of these angels, some of them ain't pretty as you think they is, because if they was to show themselves to you, you will prostrate yourself. And so you had some of these practitioners, a lot of these practitioners, um, they were not attractive in the sense that we would think physically. And the deformity was again uh, a representation of their power. I've talked about this before. Very different from what you see today. They got you thinking that doing glamour magic and all that stuff, making you pretty and all that stuff is about nah, 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 nah. Our ancestors believed something totally different. Okay? You'll see that in our resources. And go back and look at a lot of these hoodoo practitioners. You wouldn't even think there was hoodoo practitioners or had this sort of gift. And them to be the most powerful ones that have the deformities, birthmarks in odd places and things like that. Them to be the most powerful root workers and conjure folks. Go look at some of them old pictures and look at some of those root workers. Okay, mental strength and resilience are the most important traits uh, that you can have. Hoodoo served as an avenue for most of our ancestors to build emotional resilience and confidence, and not only as a form of resistance. That's why we got High John the Conqueror up in there. That's one of the archetypes and spirits that we have, and that comes from a plant. So we got a plant now that's now ancestors in hoodoo. Okay, they got him associated with an African prince as well. The herb is lined up with an African prince, but now you have the spirit of a High John the Conqueror in there. Excuse me, I'm sorry. As hoodoo grew stronger on the American plantation, the slave masters strove as hard as they could to instill principles of Christianity into their slaves, because they didn't want them practicing hoodoo or voodoo, because they knew that all indigenous people got their own form of voodoo. They knew this. If you go down and sit with indigenous cultures, you go do your research and study, every indigenous culture has their own form of voodoo. What is voodoo? Their own ancestral traditional practices where they communicate with their ancestors. Black Americans are the only one who don't understand this. It's so foreign to you, but yet you honor the colonizers' ancestors. That's what they got you doing. But when it's time for yours, they're gonna tell you your stuff is demons, and they even program some of our people to say this kind of stuff. You got that spirit, them spirits is jumping in you. Whatever's in that colonizer is now in you, because now you done lost your mind, and you do it all at the same time while talking about nothing but dead people in the Bible and calling on a dead person. I just, I don't know, y'all. I just, what is it? I just get more crazy. I'm just like, you say, you're not even thinking. You sick because you haven't even put that together. Our mind just sick. You ain't even put that together yet. And the Pope then I already told you, he told you a whole bunch of lies, and then in order to slave your mind and spirit, they hadn't already told you a lot of this stuff that was a lie. They taught you. But here you go. You're gonna keep that trauma moving. You're gonna keep everybody sick with it. That's gonna stick to your story after it's time for you to upgrade and change your beliefs. You're gonna keep on sticking to the same lie after these folks have told you this ain't true. You're sick. You still got a lot of that intergenerational trauma out there. You still doing it. You sound like them people. Okay? You acting like them people. And then when you go to trying to damn people to hell because they don't believe like you acting like them people. They had whips and Bibles in their hand, beating us and all this kind of stuff. That's how you look. That's how you look. And then this fear mongering with hell and all this stuff. The preacher and the man and I already told you they made that up. And if it was a hell, you living in it right now. Hell is nothing but ignorance and regression, and you're living in that. And if you believe in a hell, that's where you're gonna go. That's what you're gonna experience in the afterlife. They done spelled you with that, so that's what you're gonna experience. But don't give that to us, because we never subscribed to that. You did. Understand what you're doing. Hey, how you doing, Tracy? Okay. You did. You're gonna have to really think about that and get some wisdom now. You're gonna have to be like Solomon, get some spiritual wisdom and some understanding. And every time you want to point a finger and damn somebody and convert somebody to your stuff, you need to ask yourself why. Because that was done to you. That's not how that's gone. That whole religion, you're still keeping the Crusaders stuff going on. The Inquisition type of thinking. That's Inquisition type of thinking. Because you don't see Buddhists doing that. You don't see other religion. You're the only religion that do that. It's the conqueror type of mentality. If you're not like me, you evil. That's just like that man over there messing with Iran, trying to make them people do. Iran said, well, you don't run nothing over here. Stop trying to push your stuff off on, because we don't roll like that. Everybody ain't like you, and that's pissing them off because they're used to invading people boundaries and doing what they want to do. And y'all have that same type of mentality. You serve a strange God. It's really strange, but you never question it for a minute. And then you talk about us, with dead people, make it make sense. Look at this. Is anybody in that Bible alive today? And you holding on to that every word, but they ain't here no more. How they better than our ancestors that sit up there and march for civil rights, lost their life? How they better than us? How they better than them? They actually live the life that they talking about in this Bible. We actually have proof that our ancestors lived that life that they're talking about these people did in the Bible. You need to get somewhere and sit down and go heal your mind because your mind is sick. Okay, that's why I say in Hoodoo, you do a lot of getting your mind together because you got to tear away these false beliefs. I even have people coming over here they can't really get into their practice because they have to take all this stuff out of their mind. They got to strip all this stuff out of their mind in order to access their magic. This is all the trauma and stuff that be in us. You got people that they want to do hoodoo. They ain't got no altar in their house. No, and they ain't got no relationship with the ancestors, but they in there doing magic. But because they don't want no altar because they scared of the ancestors. But they ain't scared to do magic. It don't make sense because they still got your hoodoo is not gonna work if you it's not gonna work if you still got all these false beliefs and lies in your mind. This is why I would tell you your mind has to be right. Okay, it ain't your fault. I'm not saying it's your fault that stuff got passed on to us, and it don't make it better when they keep them. These folks don't want to do no better. They don't want to learn. They want to spend their time pointing the finger, talking about you gonna go to hell. They ain't even working on all the regular stuff going on in church. The pastor doing all this kind of stuff, the stuff that's going on and all the abuse going on in their family and all this stuff. A lot of them are hypocrites. A lot of Christians are hypocrites. They do hypocritical stuff. I saw when I was a child. I had one aunt that was had one that was evangelist, and I had one that was a minister. And both of them would sit up and I never wanted to be Christian. Even as a child, I said, "Oh no, God, why are you showing me this? I don't want to be like them people." I had to tell somebody else, "I'm a child of God. I'm not Christian." You don't have to be a Christian to be a child of God. That's where y'all got it twisted at. You're serving the religion. You ain't serving God. You're pushing the religion because if you were serving God, you'll get somewhere and sit down and be quiet and look at yourself and stop pointing fingers. You ain't no child of God. You're not there. You religious. And y'all religious is in damning other people that don't subscribe fully to your ideas and beliefs. That's the reality of it. And matter of fact, y'all make the whole talk shows and stuff about that, talking about the devil and demons. So it makes me wonder which one are you serving? Because y'all show give the devil a whole bunch of power and all this stuff, a whole bunch of power. You don't say that about God because if God was doing so much, you'd be talking about how much God is doing for you, rather than scaring people about, talking about scary stuff all the time. So it makes me think, you know, you talk about the devil, and all this stuff more than you talk about this God is supposed to be doing stuff for you. So which one is you serving? Because whatever you're giving energy to, that's what you're giving power to. Okay. I hope a lot of you seeing this video. And I don't know what is it about me. Why wouldn't let me just stop it? Because why wouldn't I be in spiritual warfare with them? I was born in spiritual warfare. They love coming for me. They love coming for me. Every time I say something, they love coming for me, coming in my coming for me. I'm just like a hit dog a holler, won't they? Instead of trying to figure out what I'm saying and apply it and try to do something with yourself, you want to argue with me and go back and forth because it's not a lie in nothing I said. Okay, you get in my comments and start trying to rebuke me and damn me to hell for telling the truth, something that you don't want to look at. But a hit dog will holler. So, and the hoodoo practitioner is always in spiritual warfare. We was born in it. You were born in spiritual warfare, so you might as well get ready for it when you start leveling up. Okay. So why wouldn't it happen to me? They always coming for me. Okay. And I just put it where it is. In a lot of the plantations, the slave owners organized gatherings to teach the basics of Christianity and force the slaves to go to mass. You had some slave masters would sit up in church and tell the preacher what to preach to the slaves because they had to be teaching love and turn the other cheek and all that. They couldn't be teaching no uprising or nothing like that. So you had a lot of them in the church telling the preachers how to preach, and a lot of them preachers, they still preaching that same today. They're not preaching nothing that's gonna bring liberation to the people. They still caught up in let's do what Master say because that's how a lot of them get the funding. They got to be preaching a certain way and saying a certain thing because if they say it's the wrong thing, they might lose their members and the funding might be pulled from the church. Racism in Christianity is highly entangled, even in the black church. Now these new black, in order to have these mega churches and stuff, they have to subscribe to the racism. They have to subscribe that Jesus being white. Yeah. They're not gonna tell you that. That's why our people so sick like that. And a lot of these preachers that's up in these church are Freemasons. They bringing all those crazy spirits in the church. That's why some of these people is crazy. They ain't that's but y'all ain't ready for that topic though. Okay, you ain't ready for that. You say you got wisdom, you got understanding that you are spiritually inclined. Are you really? Because you don't really understand how this works. And some of these people been in church for 30 and 40 years and haven't put this together. You can't be getting no wisdom. You can't be getting no spiritual knowledge if you don't know this. However, as the slaves began to learn the basic tenets of the white man's religion, they began to infuse its principle into the fabric of the uh, traditional African religion. So again, they start putting a hoodoo in it. They start putting their ancestral spiritual practices on top of it, where they saw some similarities. That's what happened there. Hoodoo never left the church; it was always there. It's not until they ease hoodoo out, because you had some people, some of our ancestors that was in the boule, that was in Freemasonry, and they were going along with the colonizers, saying that our practice was barbaric, and they start coming up with plans to ease hoodoo out the church. Yeah. We covered this in our community. I covered this thoroughly in our community. You had some highly educated black people that were in the boule, in these secret societies, because the secret societies are created by the colonizers so they can have these house, you know what I'm saying, house ninjas. This is where they pick the house ninjas from these sororities and fraternities to rule over black people. They've been doing this for a long time, and they call them to boule. Their job is to serve the colonizer. You got a lot of celebrities and all that is in the boule. It is a thing. You saw that with Kamala Harris when she was getting ready to run for president. Who was there? The Divine Nine. They are not trying to get off subject, but them just letting you know how heavily the black church has been um, compromised. Because at one time it was hoodoo. We still got spiritual churches. We break that thoroughly down so you can understand about your culture and the black church. The black church always it started off as being hoodoo. It never was not hoodoo until the around the late 70s and 80s. That's when it started changing. The prosperity preaching and all this stuff start coming in there. That's when it started being infiltrated. Okay. Though enslavement was a powerful determinant to African culture survival and maintenance, its power was not enough to force our enslaved ancestors to completely relinquish all their traditional spiritual and worship practices. In order for African religious traditions to contest or be combined with Christianity, they had to remain alive and viable on their own, outside of the supports of Christian practice, and they did. Okay, further supporting that process were the numerous aspects of Christianity that resonated with the African American culture tradition. So again, they were looking at that and they were applying it to the traditions of their ancestors. Okay, that's why Moses became a conjure man. They looked at Moses like a conjure man. They look at Solomon like a conjure man. Uh, Jesus the same way. Prophets, that's how they looked at them. Not not the way Christianity has set them up. They were trying to preserve their own spiritual concepts and ideology. And so the way they looked at the Bible was totally different from where how the colonizers was telling them to look at it. They had to make the religion their own to access their magic, their ancestral magic. Okay? They weren't paying attention to what their colonizer believing. Okay? They brought their own beliefs into the religion. That's what you don't know. Okay? That's what's missing. The most sacred of the Christian symbols was the cross, resonated both with the African notions of crossroads as a supernatural site with the sacred cross of the cosmograph. Okay, so when we look at the cross, we're not looking at the cross as a religious, so much as a religious symbol, as much it is an ancestral cosmology. That's how we looked at the cross. And the cosmogram is about the soul's journey through the universe or through incarnation. That's what it's about. That's what the cosmogram is. You're looking at the progression of the soul when you look at the cosmogram. That our ancestors breaking down that spiritual technology. So we brought our own spiritual technology in there and put it on right on top of Christianity. The same thing you see going in Catholicism. The Bible and Christianity entered the African diaspora during the difficult times, but became enmeshed with folk beliefs of the conjure practice. Just like I just said, just as our knowledge of scriptures does not come from one source, so too our knowledge of root work is not limited to a single voice, book, or place. It comes instead from people who daily live their beliefs and practices of prayer and magic. And so when you get over there in our community, you will see I will have to expose you to a variety of ATR practices and spirits for you to understand hoodoo. And when you start looking at them, you start understanding why we have these spirits in hoodoo because many of those spirits are in the other ATRs that we have in hoodoo. That's why I have to show it to you. Okay. And if you're just looking at hoodoo from a Christian perspective, you're missing a whole bunch of spiritual tools and ancestors that can help you in your work and help you understand the practice. And so we do have people that only look at hoodoo from a Christian perspective. I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying if you're going to be teaching somebody this, it's important that they understand the full practice. You're limiting them from teaching it from a Christian perspective. Because you got some people that don't want to pick up their own magic because they don't want to mess with Christianity. And that's absolutely fine. And some of you, when people say that, you guys get upset and say, oh, you can't have hoodoo without the Bible. You can't have, and that's just not true. That's the way your ancestors taught you. That's the way y'all got to set up the way you do it, the way your ancestors want you to do it. They don't want to do it like that, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't restrict them from accessing those ancestors. It doesn't. In addition to both a variety of African religious fragments, the Protestantism, American Indian belief undoubtedly impacted on the formation of the African American New World spiritual belief. Africans and American Indians often in close contact with one another as slaves. So again, they start bringing fragments of their beliefs and start bringing it together. And see, they the colonizer thought they was messing something up. No, you didn't. You start helping us. That's all you did is helped us create something bigger and better. That's all you did is brought those nations together. And now the bloodline is stronger. Now the bloodline magic is stronger. Now you did that. You wasn't messing up nothing. You kind of see that go on in the 21 divisions as well. When all those nations come together, you weren't messing up nothing. We brought it all together and made it bigger. Okay, that's all you did. You kind of see that with the 21 divisions. So now we got more power and more magic, and now our ancestral options are wider now. Because I'm you and you me. We one nation now. Okay, there's no such thing now. You have everybody is they're one nation now. I'm just gonna say it like that. In addition to both the variety of religious, okay, I just read that. American Indians and Africans have a long history of intermarriage, tribal adoption, and shifting identities that make it difficult in some instances, to locate where one community ends and the other begins. Okay, because now we walking around together, and then you got them creating these federal uh I don't even have a name from federal generic Native Americans. They're not American Indian. And them people confused about where they come from. You are not American Indian. Okay, just let you know they mixed us together so they can't tell one without the other now. The real American Indians is being mistaken for African, and we're not African. There's absolutely no more Africans there in America, because when they came to America, we absorbed them. You can see that in Louisiana. We do honor them. We honor our American Indian, and we honor our African ancestors in there. But that's where you see an intermarriage. You can see that come together. You can see a lot of that with the gumbo and the rice and all that. You can see how those two cultures came together and made one. They came together and became one nation. You can see that there. Louisiana is a great example of that. Okay? And now you got these people, that they think, I don't know where these people come from, but they think that they've been there the whole time. And I have to tell them, even when you look at the mounds, the mounds down there, when we asked the Native Americans, when they asked the Native Americans, did they build the mounds? They said no. They were already there when they got there. So again, we are the pre-Columbian civilization that was already there before they even arrived. Did we intermarry with some of them? Yeah, some of us did. Okay, but they are not the originators on that land. Okay, and I know it's a whole bunch of mess. And if you go look at some of them they look Asian, and then some of them just look outright like a pale face. Okay, so don't get it twisted. They have got that twisted. We are American Indians. They are federal made people, Native Americans. We're two different people, and that's where the confusion going in. They think that we're trying to steal their identity. Y'all trying to steal identity? No, we're not. We know what we're talking about. We was here first. Okay, they wrote about it. It's all documented. You don't know where you from. You'd have been confused because you let the colonizer sit up there and play in your face. We know what we're talking about. Okay. With this in mind, it is safe to say that Indigenous Americans or American Indian spiritual belief remain comparatively intact when encountering fragmented African spiritual belief. There existed a certain cultural elective affinities between the Africans and the American Indian in their spiritual reverence for nature, the wind, the moon, the rivers, the ocean, the forest, as well as living creatures. Both of them believed in animism. Most indigenous cultures are going to venerate nature because that's the closest thing to God. They are going to have heavy trace of animism in their belief systems. I'm going to keep it simple for you. Been studying this a long time. They letting you know that these culture affinities would ease the use of substitutions and facilitate any possible exchange between the African and American Indian spiritual beliefs. Okay, so now they've come together and they have bought their spiritual gifts together, and now they can all access all this information and their ancestors and their magic. Peace and blessings. Hello, Darkwood Voodoo Goddess. Now they can access all this knowledge. Okay, so the colonizer wasn't messing up nothing because our ancestors are very smart. They're gonna make it work for us for a period of time. Intact American Indian spiritual belief systems could have been somewhat secure backdrop that contributed to the supported to the retention of African spiritual beliefs. That's why I tell you when you go over there to initiate, please do it on this land. I think it's in Lukumi. One of them is it Lukumi or Abanda? One of them include American Indians in the initiation. They align you up with American Indian ancestors. I don't know if it's Lukumi in the Caribbean, but I know that I think it's in the Caribbean and Puerto Rico. They automatically line you up with the American Indians. They automatically line you up with, and that's what needs to happen because you have them. You're on that land. The magic is on that land. The things that we use, the food, even the land itself, is your ancestors. The trees and those are your ancestors. We got water spirits over here. We got fire spirits over here. That's literally ancestors. The land itself is our ancestors. We got ancestors that's on that land. We got pyramids and mounds and ceremonies and stuff that was done by American Indians on that land. That needs to be included in your initiation if you're going to do that. And some of the other African diaspora religions, they include American Indians in that. We show you that in a lot of our resources. I did presentations and lectures on that. That's important. So if you're going to be initiated, making sure that because them your ancestors, okay, they need to go in there with you. And anybody is telling you that they're taking care of you, don't let nobody disconnect you from them ancestors. They need to go up in there with you. You're going to thank me later for this. And if they're not talking about contacting your ancestors and getting their consent to line you up, if they're not telling you anything about your ancestors and they're not giving you, then you probably that's a red flag. That's a red. If they're trying to disconnect you anyway from your elevated ancestors, that's important. That can disrupt your practice. And if they're not telling you that, that's a red flag. Because all of this is ancestral. None of this works without it. I hope we're absolutely clear on that because I've just seen so many people, uh, you know, make this mistake because they were hearing something and they had all these misconceptions because they wasn't fully understanding anything, and they get over there and they're wondering what the hell is going on. And many times I've had people to come to me and it be this. I says this. But they told me, I said, stop listening to them. That's the problem when you start following people. Listen to your ancestors. That's what's going to happen when you get over there because you mesmerized with, I don't know what you're mesmerized with. And you get over there and you start following people. You think they got something that you don't got. And you come over there and you find out they don't got nothing. Okay? You better start listening to these. Don't believe what you see with your eyes. You better be going in here and going within and asking your ancestors. Stop looking at these people. That'll get you messed up now. Okay? Because everybody trying to influence and they trying to make these practices attractive by, um, showing off magic or telling you something, magnificent about this spirit when you have to develop a whole relationship. It takes a while to make it to that point. This is work. This is not no, I can do it tomorrow type of thing. Even in hoodoo, this is work. That's why I get you started on developing a relationship with your ancestors and healing. So when you do decide to pick up something and do something, you will be clear. You done the work, your work or move. You understand the practice. Okay? But there's a lot of misconceptions going on out there, and it's easy for these people to dupe you when you don't understand that, and you're they are commercializing and marketing it, selling you a dream, just like the American dream. They have to sell us to participate in it. That's a lot of what's going on there. Instead of, because if you sit down, and believe me, I sat down and looked at a lot of these practices. If you sit down and look at these practices, you're gonna be like, "Oh, wait a minute, I gotta think about this. Do I really want to be doing this? Because this is a big commitment. This is a big commitment. This is totally different from what I'm used to doing over here. Yeah, it's a big commitment. So you think about that. All right. I'm sorry they're not explaining to you like that. I'm not saying it's your fault. I wish they would be better explaining things to you like that. And I wouldn't have to come here and make these long videos and try to help you. Okay. Therefore, as a slavery progressed in America, the slaves began to integrate the principle of Roman Catholicism and American Indian beliefs into Hoodoo. You saw that go. That happened, especially in Catholicism. Voodoo hid up under Catholicism. The Orishas hid up under Catholicism. You saw a lot of that go on. It still worked the same. Okay. Until the day the influences of Roman Catholic teachers and American Indian tribes remain central to the practice of Hoodoo. Okay, there's a lot of conjuring going on in Catholicism, because we use saints over here too. And when you start looking at the saints, they start looking like your ancestors. You start finding out a lot of these saints were look just like you. Even when you start working with some of these angels, some of them start looking like you. Forget what you saying, all this whitewash stuff that you saying. Okay, we're going by experience here. And once you start doing your work, you'll find out for yourself. Because I said, why was our ancestors into this? Why was our ancestors into that? Because that's some of that was ours. You even had them having to canonize some of our ancestors in Catholicism. They didn't want to, but some of our ancestors forced them to canonize them in the Catholic Church, and they became a saint, and then we can venerate them. The same thing, and again, they do the same thing in voodoo, and they do the same thing kind of in the Ifa when it comes to the Olorisha. They do the same thing over there. It's gonna be ancestral. Okay, the religion don't work without it. None of the spiritual practices work without the ancestors. I don't care what somebody tell me. Somebody say it's very ego to tell somebody what to do about their spiritual practices. I said no. What's egotistical is think that you can jump in a religion like that without the consent and guidance and wisdom of your ancestors. Now that's egotistical. I'm trying to advise the people to get proper wisdom and guidance from their ancestors, but you so interested in duping people about the religion, you're trying to disconnect them from their ancestors for even saying something like that. What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? Where's the ethics? Where's the truth in it? You messing that up like that. Ain't no way the ancestors would let me come here and be raggedy like that. They would get on to me in a heartbeat. You better not go in there and be saying the wrong thing to them people. Be truthful. That's not how we guiding you. We don't you better not do that. You better tell the truth. You better have some integrity. That's not we want you to have good character. You better not go out there being raggedy like that. My ancestors won't let me do it, so it trips me out when y'all sit up there and see y'all do stuff like that. You can't be talking to your ancestors. You working with your ego. And your ancestors ain't gonna always say stuff that you want to hear. I just had a call, the po baby. She said, but they tell me stuff and I don't like it. I said, that's how you know it's true. That's how you know it's true. Because you ain't gonna like everything they say. That's how you know it's true. That's how you know you're doing the right thing, because everything they tell you, it's not gonna make you comfortable. And now you got to sit with yourself and say, why don't I like the truth when I say I want to talk to my ancestors, but when they tell me the truth, I don't like it. You got to deal with that. Why you don't like it? That means you got some work to do. You really ain't ready to grow. Okay, that's how you know it's right. They're not gonna be telling you everything you want to hear. You, the ego, think you can jump in a religion and do all you want to without considering your ancestors, and they are gonna be the front and center of every ATR you go into. So if you ain't right with them, your practice ain't gonna be right. I'm not making this up. I wish I'm not. I've learned the hard way too. Haitian voodoo and New Orleans voodoo, all other New World voodoo derivatives do have traces of Catholicism as an ingredient in their religious structure, but this could not be helped. Okay, they had to preserve it. Okay, they had to. In order to truly understand the 21 divisions, you will need to know the history of the people and the island on which it came forth. Dominican Republic was the birthplace of the tradition of the 21 division. The island was already inhabited by, again, the Taino Indians, who would in time be enslaved and eradicated by Columbus and other Europeans. There they worked the Africans and their Indian slaves in their fields and farms. Okay, so what they do, they had to come together, and what they do, they came up with the 21 divisions. Same thing that happened in America with Hoodoo, but it ain't no religion. Okay. The Africans and the Indians also had their very own strong beliefs. They were loyal to their gods, spirits, and beliefs, and many would die for them. However, they were also creative. They hid their religious beliefs and practices and used same Catholic religion they were being forced to adopt to help them preserve and save their ancestral ways. And they took conjure in the Catholic Church. They still conjuring in the Catholic Church. They never stop. Okay, you heard me say that before. And they hid it. They even hid the some of the Loa and some of the Orishas in some behind some of these saints. Okay. They passed their practices on to their children and grandchildren, keeping the religion alive in their hearts, spirits, and bodies. The Indian gods and spirits were also preserved in this way, and the practices of European and Spanish magic. All of these would blend together to become what is known now the 21 divisions. Okay, so it matters. Having your ancestors on your land, those American Indian ancestors, are going to be important that you include in your practice. Or if you're thinking about initiating into an ATR, if that's where your ancestors are going to lead you, keep that in mind, people. And you can still practice hoodoo and be in that religion. And it's important for the other ATRs to understand what hoodoo is. It's not a religion. It's a spiritual. It is a spirit, ancestral magic. We can be in a religion and practice hoodoo. In fact, you see some seasoned practitioners. They may work with voodoo over here, and then they might have an altar over here where they work with nothing but angels. Or they might have work with nothing but angels over here, but they also work with Hindu deities. They into the Hindu religion. Or they may even be a Muslim and they work with angels. It's just, hey, it doesn't matter. The religion doesn't matter. The magic is going to stay with you no matter what religion you choose. Hoodoo gonna be right there. Okay, I hope I was clear about that. All of these would blend together in what we're known the 21 division. With immigration and migration of free slaves in North and South America, the growth of African and American Indian based religion spread from the older cultural centers to Brazil, Cuba, Africa, to dynamic industrial centers such as New York City, Miami, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Some of our traditional practices were transformed into systems that strongly incorporated Catholicism. Okay, you have a lot of them, a lot of these ATRs that had to survive up under that. For example, the elaborate system of saints, priests, priestess, deities, and ceremonies honored by the Catholics in Santeria of Spanish-speaking countries and Voodoo of French-speaking areas. Santeria, Shango, Voodoo are unique blends of Western and non-Western religious rituals, ceremonies, prayers, invocations, and blessings. They also open open you up to work for social justice. Okay, they're gonna teach you that too. So you'll learn the jinxes, curses, and hexes to address justice. Okay, so it was there. It's gonna be front and center. It hid up under that. Same thing with hoodoo. Okay. And in order for us to understand hoodoo, we got to go back and look at all these different African diaspora spiritual practices. Because you start understanding how the Black Madonna get in there, how the Lama Damas come in there, how we got Congo spirits up in there. Yeah. Okay, you're gonna start understanding why we got these spirits up in here and where they come from. And you'll start realizing, okay, these spirits in hoodoo come from these other African diaspora practices. This is why we got this in hoodoo. You really start to get a chance to know why we have some of these spirits um in our ancestral magic. And a lot of people, a lot of them say we are mixing. No, we're not. We're doing the same thing you're doing. We're following our ancestors. We just don't have to be initiated. Our ancestors are teaching us how to do them. We're being directly spirit led. Okay, we're not appropriating. That's not what's happening here. Somebody could have said the same thing about you when you had to have your religion under Catholicism. Let's stop it with that, with this colonizing type of behavior. Okay, we got the same ancestors. Okay, except over here, I don't have to be initiated. I can be any religion and practice this magic. It's important for ATRs for you to understand that, so you don't go off creating friction, us creating friction with each other because you think I'm trying to ruin your religion and I'm not. I'm following my ancestors. My ancestors is trying to help me with my self development. And so they want me to learn their religion. It is hoodoo that led me to voodoo. I mean, make it make sense. But y'all claim that's mixing. But the thing about it, all of y'all, all this is ancestral. Just like you got different sects of religions around the Orisha. And all of y'all complain. You act worse than the Christian people in their denomination. They ain't doing it like we do it. Well, y'all ancestors were in two different locations. So yeah, it's not gonna be the same. Okay? It's not gonna be direct. They even fuss over there about about their own stuff. Okay, so we're not appropriating. On the other hand, hoodoo and candomblé are distinctly America. Okay, so I would recommend that you get over there because again, they do candomblé. They do, and I think it's one of their practices because we've covered so much over there in our community. They're going to include the American Indians in there. They have to because they're on that land. High Life Poetry 88. They have to. That's important. So this is and I hope this is highly educated you. If you're thinking about going into an ATR, now you have more knowledge, and you've been properly educated on how you should be going over there, how that should be looking. They need to be lining you up with them, and because I've had to fix this too much. I've had too many people come to me, and I've had to fix this and tell them, hey, put this on ice for a while and get back with your ancestors, and then go back to that and see how that works. and many of them have better results when they do that. But when you don't include and your ancestor veneration, that is going to disrupt any religion that you got going on, because you should be going in there with your ancestors. I hope this makes sense to you. Is this making sense, y'all? Put it in the comments if it's making sense. Cause I had to go over this again. And I had to go over this again with people, and and then people are jumping into this, and they don't fully understand it. I can understand because people are just showing you spells, and hoodoo is not that. Y'all understanding me out there? Are you getting what I'm putting down? Are you getting what I put there? Have I lost anyone? Are you still with me? Have I lost anyone? Hope I haven't lost anyone. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, good, good, good. Good, big baby K. Okay. So again, therefore, there are multicultural and reflect strong links between various indigenous groups. Because again, those nations came together. So when you look at those, looking at Lukumi, or you looking at Candomblé, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, ancestors, please forgive me. If you look at Candomblé, they're gonna have this multicultural now. Okay. They thought they was messing something up by mixing us up. No, you made a greater nation, because again, our spiritual practices are adaptable. We don't have to have force of beliefs. We'll bring it together and make it work. Okay, they couldn't, and then so now you got these other small African diaspora religions or spiritual practices. Okay, and when I and we go over this in our community, have presentations on that, and then that's when you're gonna start having these aha moments and start understanding more about the spirits we have here in hoodoo. Because you're gonna see hoodoo. Basically, what I'm telling you, you're gonna see hoodoo in all African diaspora religions. And hoodoo consists of all African diaspora religion. They was trying to retain all of it. That's why you'll see these different spirits in hoodoo. Good night. Okay. They are primarily healing traditions that involve the use of herb, plants, roots, trees, animals, magnets, minerals, and natural waters, combined with magical amulets, chants, ceremonies, rituals, and handmade power objects. The word hoodoo was seldom spoken by our ancestors. They did not really want the name or recognize the eclectic collection due to the trauma they had experienced with slavery. So a lot of them, they didn't want to identify that. They was taking some of them to jail too. We talked about that when we looked at Memphis Hoodoo, and how they was putting our ancestors in jail, and the colonizers was making our stuff look like it was devil worshiper. It was a whole big thing. I can't, I looked at that. I said, no wonder y'all here that y'all was so scared. Them people was putting y'all in jail, beating y'all up, burning up y'all stuff. No wonder y'all was scared to say, it was hoodoo or something else, because these people was doing all kinds of stuff to you and just making you look all bad and raggedy. Okay. Okay, Mr. Enigmatic. Okay. So they was making, so no matter, that's why a lot of them too, the older generation, especially your great grandmother, they not gonna test, so don't go to them. I say it again because I want to save you some time. Don't go to them telling them what they doing is hoodoo. Ask them to show you and tell you. You right now is be learning the stories of your ancestors and listening to them. Listen to your family member tell stories, because when they start telling stories and you start watching them do something, you gonna see hoodoo was in your family the whole time. Listen to them. Watch what they do. And don't tell them that it's hoodoo, because they're gonna get upset with you. Okay? Just tell them to show you stuff. Stop going in there. I know it all. Now you don't know nothing. You trying to learn from them. So sit there and look at what, and they like when you learn, when you're interested in what they doing. Okay, they're gonna show you even more if you show interest, but they're going there telling them that they doing hoodoo because that's a trauma that happened to them. That's traumatic. They think you're trying to be like the colonizer and say they doing something evil. That's not what they doing because they Christian. Okay, so a lot of our ancestors, especially your grandmother, your great grandmother, they know a lot about it, but they're not gonna call it that. And you probably done seen them do it, but they're not calling it hoodoo. And don't you tell them that they doing hoodoo. Don't tell them that because to them that's not a good thing. What is a good thing for us now in this era was not a good thing for them in that era. It was scary to be called that. It was a witch hunts and stuff was going on with that. So no, don't tell them that. That's gonna trigger them. So don't tell them that. Okay. For us, it's not triggering. For them, it's very triggering. I hope that made sense. So it's and in some of them, I want to think it's not. You know, It's n they don't want their stuff to be looked at as evil, okay? Because that God showed them that, the Holy Spirit showed them that, and that's not evil, and they're right, okay? So don't call it that to them, all right? And I don't think they even called it, and I say that I don't think they chose that name for themselves. That is something that the colonizer chose so they can identify what they were doing. But we definitely know it worked because it's not a resource that I pick up that talks about magic that don't talk about voodoo or hoodoo. I don't know any of them that can't talk about their magic without talking about ancient Kemet, hoodoo, or voodoo. They got to mention them. They got to be mentioned. Them three is going to be mentioned. I don't care what them colonizers write in their books. They're gonna mention Egypt. They're gonna mention hoodoo, or they're gonna mention even the witches. They're gonna mention voodoo. Because they can't understand that spiritual practice without looking at our stuff. And I show it to you every time, and that's a fact, Jack. Okay, I'm not making it up. I show you right there and show you in your face how they can't stop talking about you. And they don't talk about it because it don't work. They talk about it because it absolutely works. Okay. I even got them in my inbox trying to get me to teach them stuff, and I just said that was closed. Now I can point you in the right direction so you can get in contact with your own folks and tap into your own folk magic. But I can't specifically teach you this. I don't mind helping you, but I can't teach you this. Okay, they're not doing it because it don't work. I have to tell you that. In New Orleans, hoodoo was like a gumbo of indigenous beliefs. Somebody got one practitioner that was caught up in Christianity, and I tried to explain that hoodoo was sort of like a gumbo when you start looking at it, because that's what you're seeing in New Orleans. Okay, and they're gonna tell me don't be called a hoodoo no gumbo. I said, what's wrong with you? That's ancestral. That's a good thing. What's wrong with you? What you think that culture in Louisiana is? What you think that's all about? They're bringing uh the African nation together and the American nation Indian together, and it's coming one. What do you think the Mardi Gras and all that's about? What do you think the New Orleans Indians are talking about? What do you think that is? Sit down somewhere because a lot of y'all commercializing this and you're only getting surface level stuff because you refuse to sit down and look at the history and the story of your ancestors. And if you don't understand the history and the story of your ancestors, then you're really not going to get the full understanding of hoodoo. You jump for the magic, but you don't want to know your ancestor story. And the more you know more about your ancestors and your ancestor story, the better you're going to be able to do the work. But if you going for this commercialized marketeering type of surface level magic mumbo jumbo type of stuff, then you're not gonna get very far with this. One of the cornerstones of hoodoo is the ancestors. It is the ancestors who blaze the trail for each of us to be where we are to right now. It was their blood, sweat, tears that laid the foundation that enables us to do this work and to create magical change to conditions and circumstances. The importance of establishing a relationship with those who came before you is something that opens doors to powerful spiritual work. Can't have it without it. This is a spirit led practice. You're gonna be making friends with spirits, some sort of spirits over here in Hoodoo. So if you scared of spirits, don't come over here. And I advise you to stop practicing magic if you don't understand the spiritual realm, because that's the science behind the magic. That's the science behind the magic now. I don't want you to, I apologize. I ain't coming here to giving it to you like this, but I'm going to do it. So you can come back to this live stream. If you wonder what hoodoo really is, you have a full, you have a full discussion about what hoodoo is and what it is not. Okay. Establishing a relationship with your ancestors is one of the most important things you could ever do. Knowing where you came from, the struggles of your people, and how they overcame carries with it the power to put the same principles to work in your own life, which in turn becomes a potent tool of strength within your work. It also opens the door to what will come. You see, you need to know where you came from to really know where you're going. You're going to have to do that. Okay? You have to sit down and read this and not just be picking up stuff what people is showing you. You actually have to connect with this and be authentic and make an authentic, organic connection with them. Okay? Your ancestors carry with them tremendous amount of wisdom and have the ability to give direction in your work. All of the sacrifices they made laid the way for you to be able to grow, be protected, work effectively, and hold a spiritual foundation that is unshakable by any storm. Okay, we got to have that, because if we have that, you got you a good solid foundation with your ancestors. Your hoodoo gonna work. If the ancestors show you some work, I'm not talking about what these people show you, because more than likely they learned that work from their ancestors, and that's their magic that's working for them. But when your ancestors show you some work, it's gonna work, and it's not gonna look like what you see up here. It's gonna be simple and it's gonna work. Okay, that job is to learn to educate yourself about the herbs, to connect with the land, to form relationship with these plants and these roots, to get used to taking spiritual baths and healing yourself. That's your job. When they get ready to do some work, they know that you have did the work and you know what you're doing, and they'll show you. My folks, GMA, GPA, are colonized. They pass me nothing. I'm trying to learn how to hear my ancestors more clearly. Okay. So you have to get somewhere and sit down too. Okay, so the ancestral veneration that comes together in the practice. Is someone trying to show you a spell and said nothing about hoodoo? If somebody is talking about hoodoo and talking about ancestors, then you that's a red flag. That's a red flag. If somebody up here showing you spells and stuff like that, and I ain't said nothing about no ancestor, that's a red flag. If somebody is trying to initiate you into something and they haven't said anything about ancestral veneration, they talk steady talking about these spirits and stuff like this, and they ain't talked about no ancestors, that's a red flag. I don't care how pretty the spell is. I don't care how magical this so-called deity is supposed to be. None of that works without the ancestors. None of these practices work without the ancestors. And most of these Loas and Orishas have been living people, and now they have been deified. So they were once an ancestor. An ancestor does not mean family member. We're gonna go in there to do that too. It does. Every family member is not an ancestor. An ancestor is a good, ethical, a person with integrity and high morale and values. That is an ancestor that had a big impact on the community. Whether they were healer, Aunt Caroline Dye would be an ancestor. Marie Laveau would be an ancestor. Malcolm X would be an ancestor. Nina Simone would be an ancestor. They would be ancestors. Sam Cooke would be an ancestor. Madam C.J. Walker would be an ancestor. People that made a positive impact on the community. That's who we talk. Not all family members, regular family members don't make it to ancestor status. That's sort of a title. You have to earn that title through your works. So if you had regular family members, they ain't no ancestors. This is why I tell people all family members don't need to be on your altar. I know you think that, but once we go through ancestral veneration in our community, you get a thorough understanding of that. So you will be working with healthy, vibrant ancestors. I know people's not breaking it down to you like that. I'm gonna say it again. All family members are not ancestors. That's an earned title. Okay? Working with spirits, both your ancestors and spirits of the roots, it is very important that you understand that having respect for them, honoring them, and establishing a relationship with them is what brings about the potency and the things that you do. Every home needs a foundation to sit on. Without it, the home is shaky at best and will crumble at the slightest adversity. That's when you have people that get over here and they start doing spells and stuff like that, and they don't understand they're accessing spirits and energies like that. And then when it start, they go into spiritual warfare and stuff get real, and they just been doing spells, they run back over there to Christianity because you didn't fully understand this. You didn't understand that you were going to be in spiritual warfare. You didn't understand that you were born in spiritual warfare. So now you scared and you go back to church and you say, "Oh, they ain't bothering me no more." No, they ain't gonna be bothering you no more because you ain't no threat. You went back to sleep. Now you ain't no gonna be no threat. You closed off your aura and your spiritual energy. And then you went back into the program so they can feed off you. So why would they be after you? You're back in the program so they can feed off you again. So no, they're not gonna be after you. Instead of you learning the practice and try to learn the practice fully so you can protect yourself when something like this happen. Some of you run back over there and then try to make it our spiritual practices look evil. No, it wasn't evil. You weren't prepared and you didn't know what you was doing. So don't blame it on that. And see, over there in Christianity, you can be as ignorant as you want to and not know what you're doing because there's no accountability over there. So everything, you ain't bliss over there. You don't got to know nothing to practice that. All you got to know is people's going to hell. That's all you. And Jesus died for your sins, so you can be as ragged as you want to, because Jesus died for your sin. You ain't doing no real shadow work and self reflection over there like that. But if you jump over here in spirituality, that is a must. You're gonna do some work over here. This don't function like Christianity. Okay? And I know these people got you thinking that you can do as many spells you want to, they're gonna come true. It's just not true. Okay? Our ancestors are our foundation. It is by their blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifices that you and I are able to stand where we are today. Okay? They did everything for us. Okay? You see, they blazed the trail, fighting, cutting away obstructions that blocked the road for each generation that was birthed. The things they endured, the hardships they overcame, the challenges they faced, as well as they died for, made it possible for us to continue to blaze that same trail. We got to give it to them. Wouldn't be here without them. We stand strong on the shoulders of the ancestors. We pay homage to God first, then the ancestors and the spirit guides, the egoons. They come first. Okay, nothing comes over the ancestors but God. And then we go to the ancestors, and then we address our spiritual practice or tradition. Because none of that works without God and the ancestors. Then we go into that. That's how that works. So that they can give us their blessings, their protection, and their permission to proceed with our rituals for successful outcomes. Our ancestors can help us, advise us, and do things for us from the other side that they could not do when they were alive. They can help us live better, healthier, and more rewarding lives. Okay? Your magic ain't nothing popping, ain't nothing gonna move and shake and move if you ain't got this together. God's infinite power is manifested through our ancestors and guides. So, by praying to and honoring them, we petition their guidance to fulfill our divine purpose, become closer with our Creator, and to help us become successful and healthy in our everyday lives. At least this is what we should be praying to them for. Okay? They're going to help you. That's what I said. If you let them, they'll heal your whole life if you let them. If you do the work and do what you're supposed to do, they gonna heal your whole life. They're gonna fix your whole life. Okay? They're gonna help you with that. As you move into, and we're talking about elevated ancestors, we're not talking about family members. And these ancestors, they require you to do character work. I don't care what you're seeing on here. These people talking, I'm gonna get my ancestors on you. No, you ain't. You're gonna get somewhere and sit down and be quiet and try to figure out why you want to be in conflict all the time. Because these ancestors ain't your guard dogs. Hey, Remy Rains. They ain't your guard dogs. They want you to get somewhere and heal and be quiet. That's what they want. Y'all done turned this into Hicks and frenzy, into, spirits battle it out frenzy. It's not that. Okay, it's not. And I don't like that it's like that. Okay, that this hexing thing is tend to be trending. People's jumping on the train to put stuff on people and all this kind of stuff. I don't like it that it's like that. Instead of you getting somewhere and sitting down healing, and the practitioners telling them why you want to do these to these folks. Make them accountable. Say why you want to do that and do a reading. See if it's justified. If it ain't, refer them people to get somewhere and go heal. Stop doing stuff just because they got some money. This is messing stuff up too. Because, honey, a lot of them come to me and have plenty of money and be want me to teach them something. You know what I tell them? It's closed. I'm so sorry. But if you want me to help you and, guide you on your journey and help you access your own ancestral folk traditions, I'm willing to do that. Because I know a lot about that too. Okay? I know a lot about that too because I had to study it to develop my practice, and a lot of them understand that. Now I don't mind helping you, but I'm not gonna teach you this, and I don't care about you want to teach. You're gonna pay me some money. You're gonna pay me some money to teach you your stuff, cause I know your stuff. I know your stuff because if I didn't know your stuff, I wouldn't be able to come up here and have this conversation. So I know. They know when I know. Believe me, y'all. They know when I know because they be in my box. I'm not making this up. But honey, I done bumped my head too many times, and I done read so many books. I made sure I need to know what I was talking about and what I was understanding. Okay. And plus, I love the ancestors. I love hoodoo and I love the ancestors. I got an obsession and a compulsion with it. Okay. As you move into your ancestral practice, you'll see very clearly that the connection between the physical, mental, emotional, and the spiritual. It is psycho spiritual. Hoodoo is going to address all that. That's why I tell you, you're going to have your mind right when you get over here and start going on this path. Forget what these other people telling you. Your mind gonna have to be right. I don't care what other people doing. Remember what your mama said? Your mama used to say, I don't care what them people doing at their house. This is not what we do over here. The same thing applies here. Okay, you're gonna have to turn out so, and I know it looks so enticing. It looks so convincing. They're saying some convincing things that to pull you in. Of course they got to because they're marketing. A lot of them marketing their products and so they got to make it look like that. Okay, but you need to understand the practice if you're gonna pick this up. Don't pick this up and you don't know how to spiritually protect yourself. You ain't took no spiritual bath. You don't know how to take a spiritual bath. Can't be consistent because some of the spiritual baths you're gonna have to do 3, 7, 9 days, 13, sometimes up to 21 days in a row, depending on how much gulk and stuff you got going on with you, what you trying to heal from. Yeah, this takes work over here. Okay. In fact, there are some ways to heal ourselves that are rooted in spiritual issues rather than a problem with our physical, emotional bodies. Sometimes we have physical pains because of a certain spirits within the lineage. I told y'all about how I had to get that stuff out of my body when I started doing ancestral veneration. Ancestors telling me how to get that thing out of my body. Okay, you dealing with spirits in here. When we start doing that intergenerational trauma healing and shadow work, we are working on getting spirits up out of our bloodline. And that has to happen in order for you to ascend. Sometimes our depression is linked to a group of ancestors who are upset or sad themselves, which in turn affects our mental wellness. That's why some family members don't need to go on the altar. Some of them passed away not well. Why would they be well? They don't blame it on them. I'm not trying to make your ancestors seem like they're dysfunctional or bad. Let's put it like this: we were born into spiritual warfare. They were born into generational trauma with these raggedy people. You seeing it up there now. Folks calling us all sorts of names and stuff like that and don't think we're gonna hit them in the mouth. Yeah, we're gonna hit you in the mouth. Because we done already dealt with that and went through that. So yeah, you're gonna get hit, and you surprised when I hit you in the mouth because I won't let you insult me and disrespect me. And now you shocked. You appalled because I hit you in your mouth. Yeah, because you need to shut up and sit down. Okay? You shut up and sit down and go do something else. Find something safe to do and leave me alone. Okay? So a lot of them, that's why I don't recommend that you put, and you don't sometimes. And now that I look at my family members, I can diagnose them with different types of mental illnesses now that was undiagnosed because a lot of them was addiction. They were using their addiction to try to treat their mental and emotional issues. That's why a lot of us got a lot of addiction, alcoholism, and stuff like that in our family because our family they were suffering from mental illness. And our back then, a lot of people didn't go to therapists or anything like that. They would just go to the liquor store, okay, or go do something else. But they were rarely doing this because they didn't have access to a lot of stuff, some of them, but they just didn't know. They were just so sick they just didn't know. Having ancestrally grounded practice allows us to better pinpoint reasoning behind our experience. And that's what we help you do when we start processing doing the shadow work because we're going to break it all the way down over there so you can understand, the wounds in your lineage and what you need to heal in your lineage. And the ancestors love when we're healing. It elevates them and us all at one time. The ancestors are truly some of my favorite individuals to commune with because they do not feel like faraway deities. They are too omnipresent or mysterious for the human mind to conceptualize. The ancestral spirits are amazing because they comprehend the many mysteries of what it means to be human. They're so easy, they understand it. Okay. They're not far away. A lot of people say, I can't talk to my ancestors. Yes, you is. They've been talking to you all the time, but you won't get nowhere and sit down and be quiet and stop listening to people. You listen to the wrong thing. You need to be listening to people. I mean, listening to your ancestors and not to people. People mean well, you know, but they're not going to know more than your ancestors know. They're just not. And in order for you you know, to master your hoodoo or to be comfortable in your practice, there needs to be a relationship with your ancestors. You can have some people to come over here and hoodoo, and that's all they want. They just want ancestor veneration. Get that together, and sometimes that fix their life. They don't even do no magic. Just by them doing the work and having a healthy relationship with their ancestors, fix their whole life. They simply go talk to their ancestors and tell them what's going on, and the ancestors fix it. You got people like that over here in hoodoo. They don't do no magic. They're not interested in it. It fixed their life just to heal and have a healthy communication with their ancestors. You got people over here that just want that. They're not interested in no magic. They're not interested in no spells. They're just interested in a closer relationship with God and their ancestors. That's it, and that's perfectly fine. And sometimes that fixed their life because they were out of alignment. Okay, you get over here, all them spells, them people showing you, you're not gonna have to do all that because you'll have a healthy relationship with your ancestors. And if they want you to know something or want you to learn something, sometimes they'll introduce you to a spiritual system and have you working with a particular spirit in the system. They might have you working with a particular saint. Sometimes they'll say, hey, we want you working with this saint because they have what you need. They can help you on your journey. So we want you to set up an altar to this saint. They might say, hey, we want you working with angels because your vibrations is so low, you're depressed. We need you to work with them to lift up your mood and kind of treat you a little bit. You need that medicine. Want you to work with them for a little while. Let them lead you. They know exactly what they're doing, y'all. I promise to God. I promise they do. If you get with the healthy ones, they never gonna lead you wrong. Okay? They know exactly where you need to be and they will help you. They understand the difficulties of getting up to work, making meals, being tired, and being in love. They are relatable because they know, which creates an opportunity for a relationship based on mutual trust and understanding. It also helps that they have the power to heal, protect, and help us access some of the most exciting blessings that life has to offer. They're gonna help you. Okay, you can't have hoodoo without it. Them their first form of spiritual allies, and then they teach you how to make friends with other spirits. They're your first form. They teach you how to talking to your ancestors. Teach you how to work with other spirits. That's the working ground for that. Ain't no sense in you jumping over there going to the access Oshun or the Orisha of the lower, and you don't know how to talk to your ancestors. That your ancestors gonna forgive you and stuff when you mess up. Okay, they're gonna, they have mercy and grace, compassion with you. You have seen some of these ATRs and these spirits and these deities that been um these spirits over here that have been elevated to deity status. Some of them are not going to be as forgiving as your elevated ancestors. They're gonna treat you like and two, if depending on what spirit you're working with, uh especially because some people you might have to go over there sometime and work with what they have categorized as a demon. Not all demons are evil. That's not what I'm saying here. But I would recommend that you go over there with your ancestors, let them lead you, because it's easy to get caught up in a pickle with the spirit if you don't have any spiritual allies with you. Okay, they need to be there. And you are some of you, I'm giving you gems right now, and you don't even know it because you too busy trying to pick up something and do some magic. And y'all don't want no restrictions. This is where people ego get into it. I'm gonna get in anyway. I'm not gonna ask my ancestors. This is what I want to do because I want the magic and the power. Okay, go on over there, do it. See how far they get you. Because you think you know more than the ancestors. Do it. And I'll be seeing you in 3 or 4 months, and you'll be telling me how raggedy your practice is. And how ain't no spirits talk to you and everything is going wrong. Do it. And I see it every time. Do it. Do it. Or how you got over there and this Babalo cheated you out of your money and he didn't do the full ritual. Do it. Do it. I want you to do it. I want you to waste all your money. I want you to go over there and get that experience because it's going to teach you. You better keep these ancestors front and center. And I'm trying to help you. And quite naturally, I am tired of fixing people that do this. Okay? An ancestor does not mean your family members. We are quite aware that a lot of family members is raggedy because they and sick because because of the sick environment they were in. Okay, I hope I haven't lost anyone here. Okay, to be an ancestor is a title and a status that is earned. To make it simple, dying doesn't make you a special to everybody. Okay, doesn't make you special. Everybody does it. Okay, just because they died don't make them no ancestor. Some people die and now they're just dead. If someone who was an absolutely wretched person in life passes away, they do not become an ancestor simply because they died. They probably have a bit more work to do in order to reach that status, if they ever do. To be an ancestor, to be an igungun, is an elevated state of being that an individual earned because of their role and their age. And Egungun has been uplifted as a venerated spirit within their community, which gives them the label of ancestors. This communal elevation is such an important reason why our ancestors want to be remembered by families and the collective. Our ancestors want to live on, and they do so through our memories as well as through their connection with the living. Okay, the same thing with these people that want to do Columbus Day and George Washington Day, and they keeping their ancestors alive. These statues and stuff of these raggedy people, their ancestors. Okay, that's how they doing it, and we need to be focused on our own ancestors. You're welcome, Remy. A common misconception about blood ancestors is that you have to know who they are in order to connect with them. Many people feel that they cannot grow in relationship to this body of spirits because they don't have any pictures of them or have never met them or don't even know their names. This is completely untrue. I have to tell people that I don't know my ancestors. I was adopted and I was this. It don't matter. They know you. People come with spirits. You came with them ancestors with you. It don't matter. They know you. You don't have to know their names. Do know that you have them. That's all that matters. Just because you may not know certain people does not mean they don't know you. Okay? They know you. I do understand that the concept of blood ancestors can get even trickier because not only may you not know your ancestors, you may not even have a connection or know your blood family. Maybe you were adopted or never connected with anyone in your blood family. Or maybe you had a toxic relationship with your family that has been severed with absolutely no desire to connect with them in this life or the next. Let me be clear, it's not necessary for you to connect with any person, family or not, that was abusive, violent, or just plain disrespectful to you. Okay? If you know they was raggedy, that's not the family member we're calling on. Okay? You are not responsible for venerating anyone who forced their way into your lineage. Also, remember that the term ancestor traditionally refers to someone who earned the title. Now, there are some people who choose to build a relationship with their slave owning spirits as a form of healing and lineage on the even for reparation. Now I've heard people say they've called on ancestors that slave master ancestors that forced their way in their bloodline and they call on them for reparations. Now it's some black Christian practitioners do that. They call on their white ancestors for some form of reparations. But this is on a case by case basis, usually for the skilled practitioners. Now, if you skilled, that might work for you. But I've heard, not the first time I heard about it, I've heard practitioners say, I call on them ancestors, white ancestors that enslaved us or forced themselves in my generation line, and I work with them and get reparations. I've heard practitioners say that. Okay. But that take a skilled practitioner to do that, and you'll really have to have your ancestors to lead you on doing that type of work. But it's very possible. Just like I had the Mega Man. Oh Lord, I got so mad about that. The Mega Man was going to slave plantations, taking little black spirits home for him to work for him and do his bidding. I said, may the ancestors light you up. You know that's not gonna turn out good for you. You know that ain't going, and they little slave children. They don't even know. They probably still think they still alive, and you done took these spirit. You doing this with these spirits. Okay, so it's very possible to do. Okay. Collective ancestors are equally as important than our blood ancestors, and people forget about this. The scope of ancestor veneration is so wide. You might have ancestors that say that you're gay and you're the only person in your family is gay. You might have ancestors that are gay, again, start adopting you and be over you. Okay, they done adopted you now. Now they're your spirit guide. Now they're your ancestors collectively. They're not having any blood with you, but because they're in the collective of our culture, now they have an affinity for you, and now they want to watch over you. Okay. Collective ancestors are equally as important as blood ancestors, although we may not be related to them by blood. Collective ancestors are the bodies of spirits who came before us and who have reached the ancestral realm. These spirits have also been elevated by a community and can easily be seen throughout history as people that we revere even in death. An example is an individual like Malcolm X. I just said that Marie Laveau, Caroline Dye, Harriet Tubman, and Toni Morrison. Okay, these would be the collective, and they look over you. You'll see that with different. Say that you were a singer and you love to sing, and I'm just gonna use Michael Jackson as an example, and your ancestors, your family member, they don't support you. You have, your set family just not well. And then Michael Jackson, he might say, I'm gonna look over them. I'm gonna make sure that their career go good. I'm gonna be the ancestor that walk over that walk with them. I'm gonna watch over them. Okay. Say that you were an activist and you doing a lot in the community. You can work with Malcolm X. You can work with that energy. You can work with his spirit. Okay. So you have the collective ancestors too. So do not limit yourself to just family because we have a wide variety of ancestors to work with over here. Okay. And we go over a lot of those collective ancestors in our community. We're getting ready to go into some more collective ancestors here, probably in August. We'll probably start talking about that a little more. But we're going over a lot of protection and stuff in our community right now because we got a lot of newcomers over there. It is possible to channel spirits of some of our collective ancestors as would our blood ancestors. Interesting enough, we often have access to the words, stories, and lives of the collective ancestors, even more than we do our blood relatives. That's why they're telling you about how John the Conqueror and their lives. That's another reason why they like to tell you these stories about their Orisha and the Voodoo. They're giving you a clue of how they operate, their personalities, and what they like, making it easier for you to conjure them. You do that with saints too. Before you conjure with a saint, you learn everything about that saint likes. You set it up on the altar, what they like or whatever, and then you get the calling on them. Same thing. See, ain't no limits over here in hoodoo. We can do anything we want as long as we keep them ancestors front and center and follow their guidance. We be all right. This ain't no religion over here. This is freedom and liberation. We do what works. We get the work done. Okay? Particularly when I was more engaged as an activist in organizing spaces, I would often find myself and fellow organizers in dangerous situations while fighting in the streets for a change. And again, calling on those elevated ancestors to help me uh, when those challenges times, because I've found myself having to be an activist sometimes. Okay. And the term of the ancestors will often refer to human spirits. There are many ancestral spirits who are not human. So you'll have some ancestors too that's not even been born. You'll have galactic ancestors or star ancestors, what these new age people claiming. And you saw a little bit of that in what is that show? I can't even think of the show name now. But you'll have galactic ancestors. Okay, it's ancestors that's not even been born yet. Ancestral spirits can exist across time, space, and dimensions. We have to move beyond the confines of human minds to grasp the concepts such as these. So while you're expanding your mind, note that an ancestor could be a body of water. Like I tell you, it can be a tree because we got water spirits up in here. We got mermaid ancestors up in here. We got fire spirits in here. We got Shogo. We got metal spirits. We got Ogun up in here. Okay. So in trees is just like a telephone line. In the oldest ancestor, you can get to a tree real quick and do a libation. It'll pat you right into the ancestor so quick. Okay. The roar of thunder. This can be considered a form of animism, which is the belief that the natural objects also have a spirit and are living. Ancestors do have the ability to speak through elements. Okay, they can speak through nature, but they also take on the form of animals and anything else found in the natural world. When you think about it, nature existed before the human footprint. So nature itself is our oldest ancestors. So ancestors are not just people in general. It is the things around us too, nature itself. Because without that, humans would not be here. Okay. Now I've completed this whole video and live stream on hoodoo and letting you know what hoodoo is and how important that the ancestors are in the practice, and why hoodoo has all these elements, and why some people from the ATRs think we are mixing things. Well, no, we're not. You're just confused about what hoodoo is. You're in a religion and you think hoodoo is in a religion. No, it's not. We can practice any religion we want to. We follow our ancestors. If they tell us uh to look at Ifa, we look at Ifa. If they tell us to look at voodoo, we look at voodoo. If they tell us to look at Hinduism, we look at Hinduism. If they tell us to look at Christianity or Catholicism, we look at that too. There there's no limitations over here because it's not a religion. And that makes y'all mad because you're used to religion. A lot of them, that makes them mad because they don't like the fact that we have all this stuff. They think it's mixing. And most time it be these people that are highly religious. I'm not saying nothing wrong with it, but don't make me feel try to make it me look bad because hoodoo is an ancestral magic and not a religion. I can work with a variety of systems as long as I keep the ancestors front and center. You chose Your ancestors chose you to work with the lower. That's all they want you to working with. That's a religion for you. You chose that. Okay. Your ancestors only want you working with Ifa. They only want to work with the Orishas. That's what you chose. That's how your religion function. Hoodoo, my ancestor said, we're going to teach you a variety of things to help you spiritually develop, to help you grow. So if we think you ought to learn something, that's where we're going to lead you. Okay. And then you have some people, they're perfectly comfortable with practicing hoodoo with their religion, Christianity. So it's kind of getting stuck over there. Does anybody got any questions for me? Please ask the questions now while I'm here. Please ask if you have any questions. Have any questions. And again, we go over all of this in our Spiritual Roots Hoodoo community. You'll see it through a lot of the presentations. And then we have monthly meetings when, if you have a burning desire, you want to go over anything, then you're free to address it in our monthly meetings. Because I really want you to comprehend the practice and make progress and help you as much as I can on your journey, helping you learn things. Anybody have any questions? And again, so if you have somebody, come and tell you, telling you you mixing stuff in hoodoo and no, you can't practice voodoo and no, you can't. Yes, you can. All of it's ancestral. And they get tell you it's closed. It can't. Look, hoodoo is closed. That's what's closed. We don't initiate people that don't look like us. That's closed. Okay? And when you're saying closed to me, you're telling me it's closed to me because I didn't pay you money. You don't make sense. You sounding like the colonizer. Get out of here. Skedaddle. Okay? I don't care what they're saying. Don't let people fool you. Listen to the ancestors. Okay? Did nobody have to pay you? You was hiding it under Catholicism. Wasn't nobody paying you. Okay? And then the initiation with them, the initiation is basically an intuition you're paying to enter to learn the tradition. You think you're going to jump in there and immediately start working with a lot of these spirits. No, you're not. You're going to be sitting down somewhere reading and building your character. And after you've read and got to a stage, then you do another ritual to help you work, find work with the spirit. That's how that works. And I don't explain that to you like that when you get over there. But the initiation process is nothing but introducing you to learning the tradition. You're gonna be doing a lot of learning. The same thing you're doing in hoodoo, you're gonna do over there. It's no different. Okay. Any questions? Please ask them if you have them. I try to cover everything, especially when it comes to ancestor veneration, because there's so much misconception about ancestor veneration, and people think it's just their family, and it's not that. Okay. No questions. No one has any questions. Anything to add here? Nothing to add here. Okay. And a lot of times, a lot of us, we've already had this conversation before. I thought I would come here and just focus just on this topic since there's a lot of, I've found myself in a lot of places where people have a misconception about the practice. So I said, you know what? I better make a video on this because I don't think I've ever just focused on what hoodoo really is and how important the ancestors is in hoodoo and what's the source of our power in hoodoo. And so I thought I would come here and make a video on it. Okay. No questions. I see no questions coming up in the chat. Again, if you're new to our community, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have you. I just love the progress that we're making over there, the engagement that we're having in our meetings. I think you guys are doing it's so great with the engagement and in the meeting. So I'm uh, really, proud of the new people we have in our community and how it is growing. If you are looking for a reading, again, you can let me put my email here. You can email me. You can DM me on TikTok or you can DM me on Instagram. I haven't went live on Instagram yet. I'm still praying to the ancestors about that because this is I just started going to that platform. So I'm really trying to fill it out a little bit. But you can contact me on Instagram. On Instagram, we're Spiritual Roots Hoodoo on Instagram, and the link might be in my YouTube on my YouTube platform. It might be there. Okay, you guys, you have everything you need, and you know how to contact me, and you know what we have going. And I was happy to share this information with you. I hope it helped you and it gave you more insight and details about what hoodoo really is and why the ancestors are front and center in our practice. Okay, love, light, namaste. Ashe, love one, happy hoodooing and conjure.